Chapter 1242. Day after day, the test flight of Yama and Kuenping drew closer and closer. On that day, Charlotte arrived at the runway next to Rema Group's base early in the morning, waiting for that important moment to arrive. The pilot participating in the test flight of Yama was the best ace pilot in the country, an Air Force colonel named Chun Changkong. He had already flown for more than 1,000 hours and was extremely experienced. The ones participating in the test flight were Charlotte and his assistant. She was a special existence because she wasn't human. She was Super Xiaoqian. Due to how important the Kuenping was, Charlotte couldn't afford any mishaps. That was why he decided to test it himself. He was the one who decided to have Super Xiaoqian act as his assistant. He needed to access the control system of the Kuenping to collect all the data from the test flight and find any inadequacies before correcting them. The test flight of Yama and Kuenping was a major event in China, but there weren't many people there. There were only a few representatives of the military and a few high-ranking officials. The entire town of Whitestag was cleared out. Rema Group gave the townspeople a sizable amount of compensation and allowed them to leave town for a day. Those measures were all for the sake of secrecy. The Hades fighter and the Kuenping bomber were both the weapons of the country. Once they were revealed, they had to achieve the purpose of intimidating the enemy. Phones nowadays had excellent camera functions, so they had to be careful not to be taken down by the townspeople and uploaded to the internet. Fan picked up a call and walked to Charlotte. "Hubby, the chief is waiting for you online. He wants to talk to you." Charlotte already knew who Fan was referring to as chief. He took the phone and said politely, "Hello, chief. I thought you'd come today. I'm in the sky. I want to see Rema Group's Yama and Kuenping from a different angle," he said. Xiao Lei said with a smile, "So that's how it is. Then I'll start. Comrade Charlotte, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for the country and its people. I know this is far from enough, but please believe in the sincerity of the country and its people. You will be recorded in history." His voice was full of sincerity and gratitude. Can you give me some actual rewards? You're already the richest man in the world. What else do you need?" Charlotte coughed dryly. "Can you give me a special approval for another marriage certificate? Mine and Shinta Tianin's. This is my only request. Please approve it, chief," Charlotte said shamelessly. Shinta Tianin did not want his money, but he could not give her anything. He knew that what she wanted was a real status, and he wanted to give it to her. "All right, kid, this is the last one. If you ask me for a marriage certificate again, I'll forget it. I'm about to become a staff member of the Civil Affairs Bureau." He laughed bitterly. "Thank you, chief. I'm going to try it out now. All right, I'll wait for you in the sky. I wish you success." He hung up the phone. Charlotte handed the phone back to Fan. "I'm leaving." Fan leaned over and kissed Charlotte's cheek. Then, she helped him tidy up the pilot's combat suit. "Go, be careful. I'll wait for you to come back." Charlotte nodded and walked towards the huge Kuenping bomber. Super Xiaoqian and Charlotte walked side by side. She was also wearing a pilot's combat suit. Not only did she simulate the combat suit, but she also simulated the parachute belt. The parachute belt passed between her legs and outlined her buttocks. Fan looked at Super Xiaoqian speechlessly. "Her buttocks are based on my buttocks, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be so round and perky." Chin Changkong and his assistant saluted Charlotte. Charlotte smiled at Chin Changkong and his assistant. He also raised his hand and saluted. However, it wasn't as standard as Chun Changkong and his assistant. Chin Changkong and his assistant boarded the King of Hell. Charlotte and Super Xiaoqian also boarded the Kuenping bomber. Charlotte sat in the cockpit, while Super Xiaoqian entered the control system of the Kuenping bomber. "Master, everything is normal. You can start the plane." Super Xiaoqian's voice came from the loudspeaker system. Charlotte pressed the start button. The 4 engines of the Kuenping bomber started at the same time, producing a loud roar. However, the entire body didn't shake at all. This was the advantage of the fuselage made of Mystic Gold X. The structure was extremely stable. In fact, 90% of the Kuenping bomber was made of Mystic Gold X. The rest were just wires, computers, and other parts that couldn't be made with Mystic Gold X, Charlotte priced the Kunpeng bomber at 150 billion renminbi, which was 10 times the price of the American B-2 bomber. The King of Hell fighter was also expensive. Charlotte priced it at 30 billion renminbi. It was also the most expensive fighter in the world. If it was made with gold, the same amount of gold wouldn't be enough to exchange for a King of Hell fighter. A minute later, the King of Hell fighter rushed out of the runway. It broke through the sound barrier at the same time and instantly reached a height that was hard to see with the naked eye. The white mist from the engine was left behind where it flew past. It was in the shape of a cloud. There was a cry of surprise on the ground. A military general was clapping so hard that he dropped his watch on the concrete floor. The watch was broken, but he didn't even want to pick it up. He was afraid that he would miss the next Kunpeng bomber. The huge Kunpeng bomber sped on the runway, accelerated, raised its nose, and rushed into the sky. Boom! There was a muffled sound in the clear sky. The Kunpeng bomber that had just taken off also broke through the sound barrier and disappeared in an instant. It also left behind a cloud of mist where it flew past. It was a miracle that a bomber could fly at the same speed and maneuverability as a fighter. This was also the reason why the Kunpeng bomber was sold at 5 times the price of the King of Hell fighter. It was because it was worth it. With the King of Hell fighter and Kunpeng bomber, who would dare to behave atrociously in our territory? A general was trembling with excitement. Fuck America! To hell with the THAAD anti-missile system. A hot-tempered general was so excited that he burst out cursing. In the sky, a civilian passenger plane appeared in front of the Kunpeng bomber. It was China's Sky 1. The Kunpeng bomber slowed down and flew next to the Sky 1. The huge passenger plane suddenly became much smaller. Of these two planes, one was a gentleman, and the other was a ferocious monster. Charlotte saw the man on the Sky 1 through the window. He was sitting behind a window, and his face was filled with shock and a smile. Charlotte waved at the man, then piloted the Kunpeng bomber and flew past, instantly leaving the Sky 1 behind. The man on the Sky 1 watched as the Kunpeng bomber disappeared into the distance in the blink of an eye. His eyes were filled with pride, hope, and unparalleled confidence. On the Kunpeng bomber, Super Xiaoqian's voice sounded again. I have completed the inspection of all the systems and data collection. There are no problems with it. This is a perfect strategic bomber. Is there anything that needs to be improved? Charlotte asked. Super Xiaoqian said, there is nothing that needs to be improved. This strategic bomber's current technology is 50 years ahead of this world. The technology one have is not more advanced than this. So from my point of view, it is perfect and advanced. There is no need to make any changes. If that's the case, I can rest assured. Charlotte breathed a sigh of relief. He was feeling carefree. Where are we flying to next? What other tests do we need to do? You've already tested all the items that need to be tested. What other tests can we do? Charlotte said, if we still need to do tests, then we can only do a combat test. Super Xiaoqian said, combat test? Are we going to play an exciting game? It's like having an affair in the wild. Super Xiaoqian said, Charlotte, do you want her or not? If you're a man, you should get hard. Super Xiaoqian said. Charlotte laughed and scolded. When did you become so improper? Super Xiaoqian appeared in the cockpit. This time, it was not the image of the Rain Lady, but the image of a female swimmer. Charlotte was shocked by her. Are you crazy? We are testing the Kunpeng bomber. Why did you turn into a female swimmer? Also, your seat is in the back, not the front. I'm hot. If I wore a bikini, it would affect you, so I wore a swimsuit. What's the difference? Are you hinting at me wearing a bikini? Charlotte didn't know how to communicate with her anymore. He smiled bitterly. Okay, cut off all contact. Chapter 1243. South Korea's Incheon military base. A military exercise codenamed Yulji Freedom Guardian was being conducted on land, sea, and sky at the Incheon military base. In order to intimidate South Korea's old enemy, the U.S. used the 7th Fleet, 2 B-2 bombers, and 10 F-35 fighter jets. On land, the U.S. and South Korean soldiers were charging and breaking through the enemy lines on the training ground, each of them full of vigor and murderous intent. On the sea, the South Korean and U.S. 7th Fleet's warships sailed in a group formation, sweeping through everything before them. In the sky, 10 F-35 fighter jets escorted two B-2 strategic bombers in the blue sky, followed by a large number of South Korean F-16 fighter jets. It was a spectacular scene. In the Incheon military base, Ming Iju and a large group of South Korean military and political bigwigs were watching the military exercise. South Korea's KBS One Channel's live news anchor, Kim Soo-min, was facing the camera, reporting with a pleasant and passionate voice. "Hello, everyone. I'm currently at the Incheon military base reporting on the situation of the Eboli Freedom Guardian military exercise. The Ming dynasty's lost pearl is also a daughter. She has high expectations for this military exercise. Our Republic of Korea represents the highest military level in Asia, and our ally is the strongest country in the world, the United States. Therefore, no country can make thoughtless remarks about our Republic of Korea. China is accusing us of installing the THAAD anti-missile system, saying that installing the system will affect regional stability. How can installing the THAAD anti-missile system on our land affect regional stability? This is an unreasonable accusation. The Yulji Freedom Guardian military exercise will tell those countries that we, the Republic of Korea, have the power and strength to make good decisions. We don't care about criticism from anyone or any country." On a temporary observation platform, Ming Iju and a large group of South Korean military and political bigwigs, as well as some U.S. military officers in South Korea, were also discussing similar topics. They will only protest a little. The THAAD anti-missile system will detect a depth of 2,000 kilometers in China. We will know once their fighter jets take off, and their missiles, we will know where they are even before they launch. Aren't they proud of their missile force? If we build the anti-missile system on their doorstep, they will lose their strategic deterrence against you, the U.S. Commander Connor said. Ming Iju nodded. We don't care about the voices of opposition from China and Russia. The U.S. and Korea are allies. It's our honor to have the Republic of Korea in the U.S.'s global system. I hope that our two countries can strengthen our military alliance and contribute more to world peace. Connor extended his hand towards Ming Iju, and Ming Iju shook his hand. Below the stage, a large group of reporters captured this painting and took pictures of it with their cameras. Ming Iju let go of Connor's hand. "General Connor, I heard that the CEO of Lockheed Martin Corporation, Mr. Kirsten, is coming to participate in the Guardian of Freedom exercise, but I haven't seen him yet. Will he come?" Connor smiled. "I'm not sure about that. He has a lot of authority in the Pentagon. I can't command him. He might come, but I don't know when." Bang, bang, bang. A Burke-class guided missile destroyer fired at a target ship. The ship's cannons bombarded the target ship, which was transformed from a scrap cargo ship, and was immediately dismembered in flames and explosions. Then, it sank to the bottom of the sea. This scene made the people who were watching the Guardian of Freedom exercise excited, and they cheered as if they had been injected with chicken blood. In the sky, the B-2 opened its weapons compartment and dropped bombs on an uninhabited island. Those bombs were like dumplings falling into a pot and poured down on the uninhabited island. Rumble. Amidst the earth-shattering explosion, the uninhabited island was razed to the ground. Kim Soo-min, who was reporting, suddenly felt her hormones soar to the limit. She said in an excited voice, "That's the B-2 strategic bomber, the world's most powerful strategic bomber. Its performance allows it to quietly fly to the capital of China and then fly back. China's radar can't even detect it. Now, our Republic of Korea's military base has two B-2 bombers stationed. Our Air Force has reached the top of Asia." Suddenly, someone shouted, "What is that?" The cameraman then moved the camera to the east. At that moment, a black behemoth swooped down from the clouds. Ming Iju and Connor could not help but stand up and stare at the behemoth that suddenly swooped down from the clouds. "That's a plane," a Korean military officer roared. "Oh my God, what a big plane. The B-2 is like a child in front of it. That must be our Republic of Korea's secret fighter. Long live the Republic of Korea." There was a mess of shouting. Most people thought that the bomber that suddenly appeared was Korea's secret fighter, and they were all excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. However, the Korean military personnel and the U.S. military personnel at the scene knew very well that the ridiculously large bomber was not a Korean bomber at all, nor was it a joint lease with the U.S. It was an intruder. The U.S. and South Korea's Ebola Freedom Guardians wanted to create a deterrent effect and pave the way for the THAAD anti-missile system to be stationed there. Therefore, this military exercise required well-known media from all over the world to report on the scene. However, in this grand show of force to intimidate the opponent, an unidentified flying object appeared, and the U.S. and South Korea's radar and anti-missile system actually did not detect it. The appearance of the black bomber stunned the South Korean and American fighter jets in the sky. All the pilots did not expect such a bomber to enter and disrupt the Ebola Freedom Guardians military exercise. After the cameraman of South Korea's national television station KBS-1 zoomed in, he suddenly saw a logo on the black bomber. When he saw it clearly, he fell to the ground and said with a trembling voice, That's Rema Group's fighter jet." The shout was like a ladle of cold water splashed into a pot of oil, and it exploded. Enemy attack. All fighter jets, open fire. Connor grabbed the communicator and roared. His voice rang out on the observation platform, but a woman's voice came from the communicator. Idiot! Connor stared blankly at the communicator in his hand. Although he did not understand Chinese, he could guess that a woman was scolding him. At the same time, the image of a female general suddenly appeared on the huge monitor in front of the observation platform. She had a thick cigar in her mouth, and light blue smoke condensed into the shape of a skull above her head. Super Xiaoqian appeared. Super Xiaoqian removed the large cigar from the corner of her mouth, exhaled a mouthful of smoke, and said, "Sorry, we're just passing by. Don't be nervous. We're just passing by in a friendly manner. If you're not friendly, we're not friendly. Do you understand the meaning of friendly? In order to guard against your stupid behavior, I've temporarily taken over your command system, so don't even think about launching anti-aircraft missiles." Super Xiaoqian nagged. Connor roared, "What's going on? Let our fighter jets fight. Shoot it down. F***CK. F***CK." In any case, the ear-piercing air defense alarm still sounded. Without waiting for the fighter jets in the sky to move, the air defense system responded first. 2 Doyle anti-aircraft missiles rose into the air and flew toward the black bomber with a burning tail. However, after the 2 Doyle missiles rose into the air, they deviated from their trajectory like 2 drunkards and then hit 2 F-16 fighter jets. Boom! Boom! With 2 huge explosions, the 2 F-16s were immediately dismembered, and the fragments fell into the sea with flames. If intruding was a small matter, then the downing of the fighter jets and the death of the pilots was a big matter. Everyone was stunned. On the huge screen, Super Xiaoqian covered her eyes and then loosened her hands. "I've already warned you. Why did you shoot down your own fighter jets? Forget it. We're leaving. You guys continue to play." The female general disappeared together with the cigar. She and everything that had just happened were like an illusion. The black bomber suddenly rose in altitude, breaking through the sound barrier in an instant. The dull sound shook everyone's heart. In fact, the black fighter jet swooped down from the clouds, but it did not approach the American and Korean fighter jets, maintaining a certain safe distance. The one acting was only Super Xiaoqian. After Super Xiaoqian disappeared, it returned to the clouds as fast as it could and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Without the escort of fighter jets, the bomber would be at a disadvantage fighting against the fighter jets. However, with the help of Super Xiaoqian, the Asian Lord, the command center of the Ebola Freedom Guardian military exercise, could not pass the order to fight to the fighter jets, so the pilots did not dare to open fire. It was not until 2 F-16s were destroyed by their own Doyle anti-aircraft missiles that some of the pilots realized what had happened. A large group of fighter jets rose in altitude and chased deep into the clouds. There were U.S. F-35s and Korean F-16s in pursuit, dozens of them. But whether it was the F-35s or F-16s, The onboard radar display did not show the target of the black bomber, so they could only search for the target with their naked eyes. But in the rolling sea of clouds, there was no sign of the bomber. Damn it, is World War III going to break out? The Republic of Korea is not afraid of any enemy. That bomber must have copied the technology of the Republic of Korea and the United States. The ground was in chaos again, and there were all kinds of comments. Ming Yizhu picked up a phone and dialed a number. Do. The sound of the connection rang for a minute, but no one picked up her phone. Damn it, he actually didn't pick up my phone. Ming Yizhu angrily threw the phone to the ground. He did it on purpose. Don't worry, our fighter jets have already attacked. Our engineers are checking the command system, and it will be back to normal soon. That bomber can't escape, Connor said. We must shoot it down. We must. Ming Yizhu's emotions were out of control. The Eboli Freedom Guardian, which was announced to the world, used the most advanced war weapons of the United States and Korea. What a big event, what a big scene, but Rema Group's bomber actually broke in. At this time, a new image appeared on the huge screen. Chapter 1244. It was still the same annoying woman, but her appearance had changed. She had changed from a female general to a sexy woman in a bikini, and the background of the screen had changed to the sea and the beach. Everyone's eyes were focused on her, and the scene was strangely quiet. Suddenly, music sounded from the speakers. It was not a Korean pop song, nor was it a European or American song, but a popular song in China, the hottest ethnic style. Why was it this kind of music? Who would play this kind of music during such a solemn and grand military exercise? No one knew, but this cheerful music was like a knife stabbing into the hearts of all the Koreans present. It was supposed to be a military exercise, but a bomber from China had inexplicably intruded, and 2 fighter jets had been shot down by their own anti-aircraft missiles. This was already embarrassing enough, but this woman had even infiltrated the command center of the Eboli Freedom Guardian military exercise, revealing her sexy and lewd body on the screen. The Koreans should be the most prideful race in the world, and the series of events that had just happened was even more humiliating than being slapped in front of them and spat on their faces. However, this was only the beginning of the worst. Super Xiaoqian, who appeared once again as a bikini girl, felt that she was going to shake her buttocks on the screen. She shook her plump and firm breasts and danced a sexy and seductive but shake dance. Lewd. She's a whore. Who is that woman? Where did she come from? What is she trying to do? Is she crazy? I think we should send her to court and sentence her to death. Amid the angry protests, Super Xiaoqian stopped her sexy dance, and her voice came from the speakers again. Shut your mouths. I'm warning you one last time. If your anti-missile system or fighter jets fire another missile, this place will be razed to the ground. The sexy and flirtatious bikini girl disappeared, replaced by a female general in a military uniform. Behind her stood an army that stretched as far as the eye could see. All of them were her clones, with exquisite and beautiful faces and sexy and provocative figures. However, it gave people the feeling that these beautiful female soldiers were not going to war, but to shoot an epic, large-scale pornographic film. You are provoking a war. Connor was about to go crazy. He shouted at Super Xiaoqian on the screen. Are you protesting? Or are you threatening us? Super Xiaoqian's voice came from Yangsheng's system. She sneered and said, whether you protest or threaten, we don't care. If you insist on starting a war, the Kuan-Pung strategic bomber can fly to the United States at any time and blow you back to the Indian era. Kuan-Pung strategic bomber. This was the name of the black bomber that the Koreans and Americans had heard of. But they didn't know what the Kuan-Pung was, nor did they know what the Kuan-Pung was, nor did they know what it meant to the Chinese. The rock soared with the wind, soaring 90,000 li. In the Chinese world, the legendary Kuan-Pung was a mythical beast that ruled the skies. At this moment, the huge display screen changed to a different video. In the blue sky, numerous Yama fighter jets covered the incomparably huge Kuan-Pung strategic bomber flying over the peninsula. Each Kuan-Pung strategic bomber was a terrifying demon. Because of its size, even the B-2 bomber appeared much smaller, let alone the Kuan-Pung fighter escorting it. What kind of fighter is that? Why haven't I seen it before? Aren't those black bombers the same ones we saw just now? This video, are they coming to bomb us? Is World War III going to break out? Aren't the Americans going to protect us? What are their warships doing? Hurry up and start a war with China. Are the Americans afraid? These voices erupted from the ordinary Koreans who were watching the Ebilai Freedom Guardian military exercise. They were angry, but they were also afraid. They were like a group of bullied children who wanted their big brother to stand up for them, but their big brother didn't do anything. It wasn't that their big brother didn't want to do something, but that he couldn't do anything. The Ebilai Freedom Guardian military exercise command center was hacked, and the command center was taken over. The officers couldn't command the soldiers, and the soldiers couldn't control the equipment. How were they supposed to fight in such a situation? In fact, it wasn't just the ordinary Koreans who were afraid. Even the American soldiers were afraid. If the video on the screen was real, then once those combat aircrafts and bombers flew here, then the Incheon military base would be razed to the ground, the 7th Fleet would sink to the bottom of the sea, and even Seoul would be reduced to ruins. Because they knew very well that even if 2 B-2 bombers flew to Seoul, the B-2 bombers' bomb load would be enough to blow up Seoul, not to mention the spaceship-like Kuan-Pung bomber. The person with the most complicated feelings was the newly appointed Madam President, Ming Liangzhu. Her predecessor, and Jean Jian, had warned her not to change his pro-China policy when he was in office, and not to deploy the THAAD anti-missile system in Korea, because doing so would definitely provoke a man, and that man was the owner of Rema Group, Charlotte. And Jean Jian's words of advice were still ringing in her ears, but Ming Liangzhu still went her own way and made policy adjustments. Not only did she pass a series of unfriendly policies against China, but she also agreed to the U.S. deploying the THAAD anti-missile system in Korea to suppress China's missile forces. She had made this decision, and now she had to bear the consequences. She provoked that man, and that man piloted the Rema Group's Kuan-Pung bomber to come here. After what happened just now, she realized that she had made a very stupid mistake. The U.S. was indeed a powerful ally, but it was the U.S. that was powerful, not Korea. In the face of danger, the U.S. would first think of their own interests, not Korea. The U.S. might be willing to attack their old enemy on the other side of the line for Korea, but it was wishful thinking for the U.S. to go to war with a superpower like China for Korea's sake. World War III had not happened yet, but it was only a matter of time. Human civilization was built on war after war. How could it be possible that it would never happen because of so-called democracy and freedom? The most realistic reason for war was energy. The world's dominant energy source would one day run out of oil. By then, Jeju would not be able to support the current population, nor would it be able to support the super high welfare of the European and American world. If they wanted to maintain their current superior lifestyle, there was only one way, and that was to start a new round of plunder and reshuffle the world. At that time, would the U.S. ally on the other side of the Atlantic still care about a small ally like Korea? At this time, the fighter swarm on the huge screen disappeared, and the annoying woman who made people want to press her to the ground and ravage her appeared again. I will untie your command center in a minute, and your fighter planes and radars will return to normal. But if you think that is an opportunity to launch an attack, then I can tell you with certainty that if you have that kind of idea in your heart, then you must be out of your mind. After saying this, Super Xiaoqian disappeared. A minute later, the Ebilai Freedom Guardian military exercise command center returned to normal, but the radar still could not find the Kuan-Pung bomber. It was like a real ghost, and when it did not appear, it could not be found at all. Damn it! Connor grabbed the communicator and said sternly, "I order. All fighter planes take off immediately, and all guided missile destroyers search for the target. Once found, immediately fire and shoot down." Immediately, the carrier-based aircraft on the USS Washington flew into the sky one by one. Super Hornet, Global Hawk, electronic attack aircraft, and so on, not a single one was left. On the sea, several Burke-class guided missile destroyers flew to the east, and their radars were fully turned on, searching for the Kuan-Pung bomber. The U.S. military has moved out, Warships, fighter planes. With so many warships and fighter planes, they will definitely find that bomber. Let's see how long it can be arrogant for. We must shoot it down. We must let them know the power of the U.S. Navy. We must make them pay for their stupidity. There was a clamor, and the crowd was very excited. Chicken blood had always been very cheap. If one injection was not enough, a second injection could be given until one went crazy. Everyone lost control of their emotions, but Ming Yizhu strangely calmed down. She said to Connor, "General Connor, we have to reconsider the plan to deploy the THAAD anti-missile system in the Korean Army." Connor said in surprise, "Our two countries have already signed the contract for the THAAD anti-missile system. Doing this is breaking the contract, which is not conducive to the military alliance between our two countries. Madam President, please carefully consider your decision. You also have to think about the consequences of doing this." There was a faint threat in this sentence. "General Connor, the times have changed, haven't they?" Ming Yizhu said indifferently. A Rema Group Kuan-Pung bomber appeared in the Eboli Freedom Guardian military exercise ground, and we actually didn't notice it. A woman asked you to take over our command center, and our entire combat system was paralyzed. China's army is no longer the fake army of the past. Your 7th Fleet couldn't even shoot down a bomber, and was even humiliated by that woman. Do you want me to believe that the U.S. can protect the interests of Korea? Do you want me to offend China for the interests of the U.S.? Madam President, I understand your worries, but I can tell you with certainty that your worries are unnecessary. Didn't you ask me why Mr. Kirsten didn't come? He will come, and he will bring Lockheed Martin Corporation's most advanced Dragon Slayer fighter plane. That fighter plane can easily shoot down the Rema Group Kuan-Pung bomber. Is that so? Ming Yizhu's eyes lit up with the light of hope. Connor sneered, "Wait until Mr. Kirsten flies his Dragon Slayer fighter plane around the capital of China, and when he comes back, you can reconsider your decision just now." A trace of a smile finally appeared on Ming Yizhu's face. Do-do-do, do-do-do. Ming Yizhu's phone suddenly rang. Who would call it this time? Chapter 1245. Ming Yizhu took out her cell phone. She wanted to know who the caller was from the number on the screen, but her cell phone showed that it was 10,000. This was the service number of China Telecom. This was definitely not a call from China Telecom to demand payment of phone bills or broadband bills. This was clearly a prank, very much in line with that perverted woman style. Ming Yizhu hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she still picked up the phone. "Who are you?" A man's voice came from the phone. His Korean was very fluent. "Hello, Madam President. I am Charlotte." The real protagonist finally spoke. "It's you. You actually dare to call me. Do you know the consequences of doing this?" Ming Yizhu forcefully suppressed the anger in her heart, and only then did she not scold him. Charlotte's voice came from the phone. "Madam President, if I dare to do this, do you think I won't dare to call you? If I call you, will I face the death penalty? Korea or China? Don't go too far." Ming Yizhu's face turned green from anger. Charlotte's voice. "What I'm doing is indeed a bit too much, but so what? Sometimes, when I try to reason with you, you won't listen. Only when you see the knife will you face reality. Now, I'm just letting you see my knife, and you can't stand it. If one day this knife is stabbed into your body, won't you all die of discomfort? So, from this angle, I'm actually doing it for your own good. At that time, you all didn't listen to our persuasion at all. In order to let you understand some simple principles, sometimes we really do need some rather crude methods." Ming Yizhu said angrily, Aren't you afraid?" Charlotte interrupted Ming Yizhu's words. "Madam President, there's no need to say any more. No matter what you say, I'm not afraid, let alone my country." Ming Yizhu took a deep breath, and after suppressing the anger in her heart, she covered the phone's transmitter. Then, with a very small voice, she said to General Connor beside her, "It's Charlotte. I'm sure he's the one piloting that Kuan-Pung strategic bomber." Connor immediately became excited. He took 2 steps back and used the communicator to give a new order. "All combat personnel, pay attention. It has been confirmed that the pilot on that bomber is Charlotte. Everyone attack. This time, no matter what, We must kill him. The order was issued, and even the fighter jets on standby at the Incheon military base ignited and prepared to take off. Mr. Xia, if you do this, you will start a war. I can make you suffer with just one phone call. Do you believe that? Don't use such words to scare me. I guess that person doesn't even answer the phone, right? Charlotte's voice had a hint of ridicule. You. Ming Yizhu was speechless. It was Charlotte's voice. Madam President, don't think that I don't know what you're discussing. There has never been a lack of people in this world who want to kill me, but I am still alive, and those people are already dead. All right, since you and that Connor fellow want to kill me so much, I've decided to give you a chance. I'll be above you in the stratosphere. Have her fighter jets come up. Ming Yizhu covered the communicator of the phone again and whispered, "He's above us in the stratosphere." Connor immediately ordered, "That's called a bomber. It's in the stratosphere. All fighter jets attack." Ming Yizhu turned on the communicator for the second time. "Mr. Xia, I admire your arrogance and courage. I will send you to the Korean court and let you stand trial. You will face the death penalty." Charlotte's laughter came from the phone. "Looks like everything I did before was useless. I've seen the arrogance and conceit of the Koreans. But you guys are lucky. Because I'm still in a hurry to go back for dinner, I'll just destroy your confidence a little. We won't play big this time. I'll go back for dinner after we're done." He was in a hurry to go back for dinner? On such an occasion, such a big matter, he actually said that he was in a hurry to go back for dinner. Ming Yizhu's feelings could no longer be described with words, but if she could swear, she would definitely say, "Eat your mother's asterisk, asterisk, asterisk." The busy tone of the call ending came from the phone. Charlotte had already ended the call. In the Incheon military base, dozens of F-16 fighter jets on standby roared into the sky. Above them, a group of fighter jets led by 10 U.S. F-35s and supplemented by the Korean Air Force's F-16 fighter jets had already rushed into the clouds. They had gone to the stratosphere to pursue the Kuin-Peng strategic bomber. Getting rid of Charlotte was what the people in the White House and the Pentagon wanted to do the most. As long as there was a chance, they would not let it go, and everything else had to make way for the operation to get rid of Charlotte. However, before the fighter jets on the ground could take off, an ear-piercing air defense alarm suddenly sounded. Everyone looked up at the sky. A black object rapidly fell from the sky. It was unusually large and looked like a small plane. However, it did not have wings, and its elliptical shape betrayed its identity. It was a bomb. A bomb! Hurry up and run. The Korean citizens who were watching the Eboli Freedom Guardians ran away. Some had their shoes trampled off, some fell to the ground, some were crying, and some were wailing. The scene suddenly became chaotic. Then, it was the soldiers of the United States Army and the Korean Army. They also began to flee in disorder. The previously lively and fearless charging formation had turned into a deserter formation. The so-called glory of the soldiers and the mission of the country were simply vulnerable in the face of death. After all, people could not outrun a bomb falling from the sky. A few seconds later, the behemoth-like bomb fell to the sea. Kaboom! A huge explosion was followed by a series of explosions. The entire sea seemed to be stirred up, and huge waves rolled. The shock wave of the explosion pushed over from several kilometers away, toppling the podium where the Eboli Freedom Guardians were watching. Ming Yizhu, Connor, and their guards, who were standing on the podium, were all knocked to the ground. The explosion just now was the exclusive super bomb of the Kuin-Peng bomber, Thunderclap. It was a letter bomb, and a single bomb weighed up to a ton. One thunderclap was enough to destroy the entire Incheon military base. The shock wave of the explosion was exhausted, and everything was still. Ming Yizhu, who was lying on the ground, looked pale. If the bomb just now had landed here, then everyone here would have to go see God. As a soldier, Connor's performance was no better than Ming Yizhu's. His forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his mind was blank. One bomb was enough to destroy the entire Incheon military base. If several Kuin-Peng bombers attacked at the same time and appeared over the United States, radars would not be able to detect them. bombs, or even nuclear bombs fell from the sky, what would the consequences be? He did not dare to imagine, and his mind was blank. In the sky, in the Kuan Pong strategic bomber, Charlotte's finger left the button, and then he looked back at Super Xiaoqian sitting behind him. Am I too kind? I can turn them into roast ducks. Super Xiaoqian flashed and suddenly squeezed at Charlotte's side. Why don't you throw another bomb? Charlotte was speechless. Stop messing around. Do you really want to blow up those people? If so, the war will really come. Winning is definitely not a problem, but we will lose our morality and fall into a situation of isolation and helplessness internationally. You really have a lot of things to think about, but Super Xiaoqian wanted to say something, but stopped. Charlotte said, but what? Super Xiaoqian said, you are a person who thinks too much for the country and others, but you think too little for yourself. Charlotte couldn't help but smile bitterly, but he did not say anything. If it weren't for the approaching end of his life, he would definitely not do such a crazy thing, and he would not divide the original shares of Rema Group into several parts and give them all to his women, children, and Xia Shui. He knew his own fate. How could he not think about his motherland and people? How could he not think about his women and children? His current thought was that even if he died, he would die without regrets. Super Xiaoqian suddenly said, there are fighter jets coming up, F***CK, dozens of them. Charlotte was stunned for a moment. What did you say? Fighter jets are coming. No, the previous word. F***CK, where did you learn it? In the two-people rotation. Several black lines suddenly appeared on Charlotte's forehead. My master, do you need me to take over their command center again? Super Xiaoqian cleverly changed the topic. Charlotte said, no need. They think that the Kuan Peng bomber is a simple bomber that has no power to fight back in front of fighter jets? Then they are wrong. Their missiles can't even lock onto the ghost drone, let alone the more advanced Kuan Peng bomber. As soon as his voice fell, several air-to-air missiles flew under the belly of the Kuan Peng bomber and then fell to the ground. Charlotte pressed the launch button on the control panel. The weapon compartment of the Kuan Peng bomber opened, and a strange-looking bomb suddenly ejected from the cabin to the rear. As soon as the bomb left the weapon compartment, it inflated. Not only did it not fall, but it also floated up. The Kuan Peng bomber suddenly accelerated, broke through the sound barrier, and quickly left. Boom! Just as the Kuan Peng bomber flew out of the danger zone, the inflatable bomb suddenly exploded. A cloud of black dust suddenly appeared behind the Kuan Peng bomber and in front of the fighter jets. The wind blew west, the fighter jets flew east, and the two sides instantly encountered each other. After that, the fighter jets that lost power fell one after another. Some of the less seriously damaged ones turned around and fled. The dozens of fighter jets came and left in a hurry. The bomb that just exploded was also a special bomb exclusive to the Kuan Peng bomber, the air blast graphite bomb. The graphite bomb was also known as the soft bomb, commonly known as the electric killer. It was named because it did not aim to kill or injure enemy soldiers. It was also known as the power cut bomb because of its powerful destructive power to the power supply system. The main target of attack was the city's power transmission and distribution system, and it was paralyzed. But that was only a conventional graphite bomb. The upgraded version of the graphite bomb, which had been improved by the Rema Group, could float in the air and explode, allowing graphite fibers and special magnetic particles to enter the interior of the fighter jet through the air inlet, thus paralyzing the power supply system of the fighter jet. Well done. Super, Xiaoqian applauded in the cockpit. Charlotte, however, did not have the slightest hint of happiness. My master, what's wrong? You fought a beautiful battle. You should be happy. Super Xiaoqian said, her voice full of worry. Charlotte said, I'm fine. You're lying. I just told you, you haven't been happy recently. Even if you smile at people, it's just a pretense. Super Xiaoqian said. Charlotte was silent for a moment before saying, Xiaoqian, promise me one thing. My master, I don't like you talking to me in this tone. I'll be sad. You're begging me. You're my master. You should give me orders. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Charlotte said, all right, I'll give you an order. What is it? If I die, You have to do everything you can to protect my wife and children, as well as my sister. If you find out that someone wants to target them and intends to hurt them, no matter who it is, use all the resources you can use to kill that person. Super Xiaoqian said, I know. I can use the money I earned to bribe the killer. I can also make the electrical appliances in his house suddenly malfunction. Although I don't have a real body, it's very easy for me to kill someone. I have many ways to achieve my goals. Then that's it. This is the last order I'll give you. You're not really going to die, are you? Charlotte just smiled and said nothing. Chapter 1246. As night fell, the rampaging Kuan Peng bomber returned safely. There was no celebration party, nor was there any news. In China, it was as if the Kuan Peng bomber and the Yama fighter did not exist. However, Charlotte still received his reward, the 6th specially approved marriage certificate. There was the man's personal signature, a special seal, and a 1-inch photo of him and Shinta Tianyin. This was the reward Charlotte received for developing the Kuan Peng bomber and the Yama fighter for China. When he received this reward, Charlotte smiled happily. He always had a feeling for Shinta Tianyin that was hard to give up. Shinta Tianyin was the first woman he had fallen in love with, even earlier than Liang Xiao. It was just that at that time, he was muddle-headed. Later on, when Liang Xiao entered his life, that feeling was suppressed. Later, he fell in love with Shinta Tianyin and married her. That was the most beautiful time he had ever had. After divorcing Shinta Tianyin, he was in great pain. He felt as if he had lost the most important thing in his life. Now that thing was back. It was very important for him to get the most precious thing he had lost when the end of his life was coming. The 6 women were waiting for Charlotte to eat in the dining room. As soon as he came back, Jiang Rui went to add more bowls and chopsticks for him and poured him a glass of red wine. Charlotte's disgust for ordinary food was very strong, but in front of his wife and children, he still bit the bullet and ate a little. Honey, did the test flight go well? Fan Fan asked in a lively atmosphere. Charlotte said, it went very well. There was no problem with the Kuan Peng bomber. Earlier, the chief called to ask me if I could get in touch with you. I said no. I could tell that he was very worried about you, Fan Fan said. Charlotte smiled. He wasn't worried about me. He was worried that I would make a big mess for him. What happened? Liang Xiao asked. Charlotte said, I just drove the Kuan Peng bomber to the Incheon military base in South Korea for a stroll and participated in the joint Korean and American Eboli Freedom Guardian military exercise. Liang Xiao's chopsticks fell to the ground. Fan Fan suddenly became nervous. Hubby, how can you do this? You've caused a huge disaster. Charlotte said indifferently, Don't worry, I have tacit consent. Nothing will happen. While the women were discussing, Shinta Tianyin was the only one who was quiet. She slowly chewed her food and stared at Charlotte with her big, bright eyes. Her gaze was filled with admiration and gentleness. The man she liked was a man of indomitable spirit, and what Charlotte had done had exceeded her highest standards. Daddy, I also want to fly a plane, Liang Jieyu said with a tender voice. Charlotte picked him up and kissed him. When you grow up, you can fly a plane. Xiao Long suddenly said, Brother, if you fly a plane, I will hit a plane. The dining room suddenly burst into laughter. The dinner ended in a lively atmosphere. Charlotte came to the door of Shinta Tianyin's room. He reached out and knocked on the door. Who is it? Shinta Tianyin's voice came from the room, followed by the sound of slow footsteps. During this time, she walked very slowly and very carefully. It's me, Charlotte said. The footsteps in the room suddenly sped up. A few seconds later, Shinta Tianyin opened the door, but she blocked the door and didn't let Charlotte in. She looked a little nervous. I can't sleep with you. Charlotte reached out and hugged her thickened waist. He said with a smile, When did I become that kind of man in your eyes? Shinta Tianyin snuggled into Charlotte's arms. After you divorced me. Charlotte, I'm joking with you. Actually, I quite like you like that, but I can't satisfy you, Shinta Tianyin said. She was already in labor and could give birth at any time. It was definitely very dangerous to do that kind of thing. In fact, Charlotte hadn't touched her for almost 2 or 3 months. and she actually quite wanted to. Charlotte picked her up by the waist and walked to the bed. You really want to? Shinta Tianyin became nervous again. I can't with you. I'll call Xiao and the others over, okay? Charlotte put her on the bed and then spanked her butt. I just want to talk to you. I don't want to do anything. Why did you call them over? Shinta Tianyin was slightly stunned, and then a smile appeared on her face. What do you want to talk to me about? Well, I want to give you a gift, Charlotte said. What gift? Shinta Tianyin lay on her side, as if she was afraid that Charlotte would spank her again. Close your eyes, Charlotte said. Can't you just show it to me and close your eyes? You also have to close your eyes. Shinta Tianyin was unwilling. Charlotte said with a smile, if I tell you to close your eyes, then close them. I promise I won't secretly kiss you, okay? If you want to kiss me, you can kiss me for as long as you want. Shinta Tianyin closed her eyes. Charlotte placed a specially approved marriage certificate in Shinta Tianyin's hands, and then said, okay, you can open your eyes now. Only then did Shinta Tianyin open her eyes. She was stunned when she saw the red marriage certificate in her hands. Then, she held it over her heart, and tears welled up in her eyes. Although it was only a marriage certificate, it was very important to her. She had once had it, but she lost it. Now, she had regained it. This marriage certificate was proof that she and Charlotte had reunited, and it was proof that her children had a legal father. Previously, she was very worried that her children would be ridiculed and bullied by other children at school because she couldn't tell her children who their father was. Now, she could openly tell her children that Charlotte was their father. He was a hero and a man of indomitable spirit. Silly, you should be happy. Why are you crying? Charlotte also climbed onto the bed, then hugged her and comforted her gently. Shinta Tianyin wiped her tears with the cuff of her pajamas and said in a choked voice, I'm very happy. I'm so happy that I want to cry. Charlotte said in her ear, don't cry. You look better when you smile. Shinta Tianyin smiled through her tears. If you want to see me smile, I'll smile for you. Charlotte kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, go to sleep. I'll hold you to sleep. Aren't you going to their room? No, I'm not going anywhere. I just want to hold you to sleep. Charlotte said. Shinta Tianyin closed her eyes. Only in Xia Lei's embrace would the queen of the Wanxiang Corporation become a gentle woman, obedient and lovable like a little bird. Charlotte couldn't sleep with his eyes closed. He couldn't sleep for more than 2 hours now. 2 hours of sleep was obviously not enough for ordinary people, but it was enough for him. But tonight, he was willing to do nothing. Even if he was in a daze on the bed, he wanted to sleep with Shinta Tianyin. The feeling of sleeping with Shinta Tianyin in his arms was still so comfortable and warm. Time seemed to flow back to the time in Haizhu. Such days were getting fewer and fewer for him. How many times could he sleep with Shinta Tianyin in his arms? He didn't know it all, but he knew that every time he hugged him, it would be one less time. So, he treasured every chance he had and every minute he had. As he lay there in a daze, Charlotte couldn't help but think about the world box, the skull, Zhu Xinyue, and the prehistoric one, as well as the blurry face hidden in the crystal skull. There was a rustling sound, and Charlotte's thoughts were pulled back to reality by a gentle hand. It was Shinta Tianyin's hand. He didn't know when her soft hand had slipped from his lower abdomen to a certain place and did something naughty. That gentle and burning feeling spread through his body, and Charlotte's body also slightly tightened. Tianyin, what are you doing? I can't sleep, Shinta Tianyin said. If you can't sleep, then I can't, Shinta Tianyin said in Charlotte's ear. I know, so I used my hand. Charlotte didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Tianyin, I don't need that. Really, you don't have to think about my feelings. Shinta Tianyin bit Charlotte's ear. I didn't think about your feelings. It's just that I haven't touched you in a long time, and I want to touch you. Charlotte, the plastic bite was pulled away, and Shinta Tianyin clumsily climbed up and then moved the big white ball down. Charlotte hugged her and said with heartache, Sleep, let's sleep. If you really can't sleep, we can talk. Shinta Tianyin pushed Charlotte's hand away. Today is the day we get married, and tonight is our wedding night. How can we sleep on our wedding night? Let me, as your wife, do my duty. I'm serious. Charlotte couldn't help but smiled bitterly. He closed his eyes, and then he felt his body surrounded by tenderness, falling into that soft nest, and he didn't want to come out again. Everything quieted down, and Shinta returned to Charlotte's arms again. The two of them hugged each other tightly, unwilling to be separated for a second. After a while, Charlotte said, Tianyin, I also prepared a will for you and the child, and 40 billion US dollars. I put it in the safe in the office, and I'll ask Qin Xiang to bring it to you tomorrow. Huh? Shintu Tiannin's reaction was very strong. I don't want any will. I told you. You're so young. Why would you make a will? Besides, I don't lack money. I know you don't lack money, but I can't give it to Xiao and Yu Yin and not give it to you. I still don't want it. I only want you. Now, if you give me another chance, I'd rather give up the Wanxiang group. I only want you. Shinta Tiannin's eyes were filled with tears. On their wedding night, her child hadn't been born yet, but Charlotte mentioned a will which she couldn't accept. Charlotte said to himself, I divided the Rema group into 8 parts, 1 for each of you, and 15% of the original shares. Xia Shui gets 10%, but I'll give her more money. In addition, I'll also give some money to those who started the business with me. Guanling Shan, Zhou, Xiaohong, Lu Sheng. Wait, if you divide it like this, you'll have nothing left. The Rema group is your painstaking effort. You developed it from a small workshop on the street to its current scale. Now it's time for you to take it to the top of the world, but you want to give it up. Tell me why. There's no reason. Don't refuse me, okay? Shinta Tianyin bit her cherry lips, and tears flowed down silently. She could feel that there was something in Charlotte's heart, and it was a very big thing, but if Charlotte didn't say it, she couldn't guess. Her heart was full of worry. Look, you're crying again. When did you become so fond of crying? Charlotte reached out to scratch her nose. Shinta Tianyin was still crying silently. Charlotte reached out and patted her big white ball. If you cry again, I'll spank you. Ouch! Shinta Tianyin suddenly cried out in pain, and her expression was very painful. Charlotte said with a smile, You don't have to praise me that much, do you? I didn't even use my strength. I can't bear to. Ouch, ouch. Shintu Tiannin's expression was even more painful. Charlotte panicked. What's wrong with you? Hurry. Hurry up and send me to the hospital. I'm going to give birth. Shinta Tianyin said. Charlotte hurriedly jumped out of bed, put on his pants, picked up Shinta Tianyin, and walked out. As soon as he went out, he saw Long Bing running in this direction. As she ran, she shouted, Husband, Yu Yin's going to give birth. Why are they giving birth together again? Charlotte couldn't think about this anymore. Chapter 1247. Wanxiang Group's Private Hospital. It hurts, it hurts. Why is giving birth so painful? Can I not give birth? Ugh. She complained about the pain and said that she did not want to give birth, but Shinta Tianyin still gritted her teeth and tried hard to give birth to the child in her stomach. Charlotte stood by the bed and held Shinta Tiannin's hand tightly, comforting her. Don't be afraid. Hold on. It will be born soon. I have 2 in my stomach. Will it hurt twice? Shinta Tianyin stared at Charlotte with tears in her eyes, looking delicate and pitiful. Charlotte bit the bullet and said, No, both of them will come out at the same time. You're lying. Charlotte, ouch. Ouch. Tang Yuyin also cried out in pain. She was in the bed next to Shinta Tianyin, behind Charlotte. When Charlotte comforted Shinta Tianyin, she gritted her teeth and didn't cry out, but she really couldn't hold it in anymore. Charlotte then turned around and held Tang Yuyin's hand, comforting her. Yuyin, don't be nervous. It will be over soon. It's not like you're the one giving birth. Of course it will be over soon. Try giving birth again. Ouch. Tang Yuyin groaned in pain. Charlotte's head was starting to hurt, but he still tried to comfort and encourage Tang Yuyin. You've been practicing martial arts since you were young, and you're a special agent, so you've been trained in pain. Don't tell me you can't even take this little pain? Aren't you afraid of pain because you're a special agent? You're obviously biased, Tang Yuyin said. Charlotte, the 2 female doctors and a few nurses covered their mouths and snickered. I'll forgive you if you kiss me, Tang Yuyin said. Charlotte didn't hesitate, and the deputy chief kissed Tang Yuyan. Shinta Tianyin screamed again. Ouch, ouch. Charlotte then turned around and kissed Shinta Tianyin. However, the power of the kiss was, after all, on the spiritual level. The places that were supposed to hurt still hurt. The two women soon began to cry out again. Not a moment of silence. A few minutes later. It's coming out, it's coming out. Chairman, try harder. A female doctor said excitedly. Shinta Tianyin squeezed out with all his might. I see the head. Try harder, said the doctor. As soon as Shinta Tianyin's baby's head appeared, the female doctor who was helping Tang Yuyan also said excitedly, I can see his head. Keep going, he's coming out soon. Tang Yuyan also squeezed out with all her might. A minute later, the female doctor who was helping Shinta Tianyin took out a baby from between Shinta Tianyin's legs. The female doctor gently patted the baby's butt, and the baby cried out. Is it a son or a daughter? Shinta Tianyin asked anxiously. The female doctor who was helping her said with a smile, Congratulations, Chairman. It's a son. A smile immediately appeared on Shinta Tianyin's face. Beads of sweat dripped down from her forehead and cheeks. The pain and hardships from before had all been repaid at this moment. Her heart was filled with happiness and joy. This feeling could only be experienced by a woman who had been a mother. Wah! There was also a cry behind him. Charlotte turned around and saw the female doctor who was helping Tang Yuyan take out a baby boy with an umbilical cord from between Tang Yuyan's legs. He couldn't help but give birth, and his other son was also born. According to the time of birth, the son that Tang Yuyan had just saved was his youngest son. It's a son, it's a son. Charlotte reported the good news before the female doctor. He then reached out to hold his youngest son, but the female doctor hid his hand. There are bacteria on your hand. You can't hold it. Also, you haven't even cut the umbilical cord. Where are you going? The female doctor spoke very quickly. She didn't give Charlotte any face at all. Charlotte smiled embarrassedly and withdrew his hand. It's out again. Chairman, use your strength. The female doctor who was helping Shinta Tianyin became excited again. Yes. Shinta Tianyin's face turned red. Because the older brother had opened up the channel, the birth of the younger sister seemed to be very smooth. Shinta Tianyin almost didn't use much strength, and she was born. 3 nurses wrapped the children in swaddling clothes. Charlotte kissed Shinta Tianyin and Tang Yuyan. He was very happy. After the doctors and nurses did what they needed to do, they left. The 3 children lay in the crib next to their mother. It was also very strange. The 3 children only cried a few times when they were born, and then they stopped crying. They looked very quiet, watching the world with their eyes wide open. Tang Yuyan said, Honey, you haven't named our son yet. What name do you want to give him? Well, Charlotte put on a thoughtful look. Tang Yuyan then said, Anyway, my son can't be called Xiatang, Xiaoyu, or Xiaoyan. Shinta Tianyin burst out laughing. Charlotte said with a smile, Then let's call him Xiaodawang. Tang Yuyan was stunned for a moment, and then a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She recalled what had happened on the Tao Wang snow mountain. Xiaolei had given her all of his clothes. He had fought against 100 enemies alone to ensure her safety. That was a memory that she would never forget for the rest of her life. Shinta Tianyin said the name Xiaodawang. Why did you give him such a strange name? Tang Yuyan smiled. That's a good name. I like it very much. Let's call him Xiaodawang. Shinta Tianyin said, I guess there must be a story behind the name, but I won't get to the bottom of it. As long as you like it, Yuyan. She was grateful to Tang Yuyan, because if it hadn't been for the bottle of antidote that Tang Yuyan had given her, she wouldn't have been pregnant with twins at all. Thank you. Tang Yuyan smiled happily. Shinta Tianyin said, We're sisters. No need to thank me. Don't be so polite to me in the future. Okay. I won't be polite to you, okay? Tang Yuyan said. Woo-woo. Xiaoyang's little mouth made a vague and childish sound. Charlotte walked over and looked at Xiaoyang, who was lying in the baby's bed. His eyes were full of fatherly love. Xiaoyang, Daddy's good son. What do you want to say? Beep. A new sound came from Xiaoyang's little mouth. Then, Xiaoyu's little mouth also made a beep sound. Xiaolei was immediately curious. Could it be that they're talking about something? Shintatianin rolled his eyes at Charlotte. You're too confident. Although they're your children, they've just been born. Do you think they're talking to you? However, Charlotte didn't seem to hear what Shintatianin said. He stared at Xia Yang and Xia Yu thoughtfully, because his energy field could no longer detect the brainwaves of the two children. The brainwaves of the two children had surprisingly the same frequency. Is this the telepathy of twin siblings? If that's the case, Xia Yang and Xia, you will be more powerful than my other children. After all, they were just born, Xia Lei thought in his heart, and was surprised. In fact, Shintatianin's two children, Xia Yang and Xia Yu, were born prematurely. After all, Tang Yuyin was pregnant earlier than her. However, her son, Xia Yang, was born earlier than Tang Yuyin's son, Xia Dawang. But he didn't look weak at all. He was even more lively than Tang Yuyin's son. Children born prematurely should not be like this, but Xia Yang and Xia Yu were so abnormal and did not follow the normal route. Looking at Xia Yang and Xia Yu's faces, which were exactly the same, Charlotte suddenly thought of something. When I went to Nigeria with Tianin, I took the last AE capsule. My body had just started a comprehensive evolution. Is it because of that reason that Xia Yang and Xia Yu's brains and bodies are stronger than my other children? Although this was only a guess, there was only one reason if he wanted to find a reason. After his body started a comprehensive evolution, his genes were almost perfect. He was better than before in all aspects, so the seed sown at this time was of course the most perfect seed. However, he wouldn't divulge this secret, because Shintatianin had obtained his best seed. His other 5 wives would definitely want to have second child, and he was no longer able to impregnate any more women. Moreover, if the other 5 wives knew about this, Shintatianin would easily fall into a state of isolation. He couldn't carry out another deep hypnosis on all his wives, right? Honey? Shintatianin looked at Charlotte curiously. What are you thinking about when you look at our children like that? Only then did Charlotte come back to his senses. He smiled and said, Nothing. I'm just observing how similar their faces are. They're still so young. When you see, Shintatianin said. Of course I want to see. If Xia Yang looks too much like Xia Yu, won't he become a trap when he grows up? If Xia Yu looks too much like Xia Yang, won't she become tomboy? Of course, as a father, I have to care about such a big thing. Charlotte gave his explanation. Wow, what trap? What tomboy? What are you talking about? Shintatianin laughed and scolded. When they grow up, I'll let them treat you as a father. Tang Yuyin also laughed. Ha ha. Xia Tavong seemed to be infected by his mother and also giggled. Charlotte walked to the side of Xia Tavong's crib, reached out to pick him up, and then kissed his little face. Ayo, Daddy's good son, you're so heavy. Ha ha. Xia Tavong laughed very happily. Tang Yuyin pretended to be unhappy. You little brat, how hard did mommy work to give birth to you? But you're the closest to your daddy. I'm ignoring you. Charlotte reached out and slapped Tang Yuyin's buttocks. What kind of mother are you? You're actually jealous of your son's father. Son, Daddy hit Mommy, okay? Xia Tavong's little hand slapped Charlotte's mouth, and then a chubby little finger drilled into Charlotte's nostril, and his mouth was still shouting. Xia Lei stealthily used his energy field to capture Xia Tavong's brainwaves, and this time, he was shocked. Xia Tavong's brainwaves were also very active. Although they were not as good as Xia Yang and Xia Yu, they were not far behind. His first judgment was that if Xia Tavong worked harder, his achievements would not necessarily be worse than Xia Yang and Xia Yu's. After all, he only lost by a little at the starting line. Shintatianin and Tang Yuyin's children were very outstanding. Charlotte was in a good mood, hugging and teasing Xia Tavong. Xia Tavong, on the other hand, was giggling nonstop in his father's arms. He also looked very happy. Xia Yang and Xia Yu cried, one louder than the other. Chapter 1248. The children were crying, and Charlotte became nervous. What's wrong with them? I'll call the doctor right away. Shintatianin said. Why are you calling the doctor? The children are crying because they're hungry. Bring Xia Yang and Xia Yu to me. I'll feed them. Charlotte then carried Xia Yang and Xia Yu into Shinta Tianin's arms, and then looked at Shinta Tianin eagerly. Shinta Tianin rolled his eyes at Charlotte and said, "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen enough?" Charlotte said with a smile, "How can I see enough? I'll see enough for a lifetime." Shinta Tianin couldn't help smiling, and her heart was filled with sweetness. Although Charlotte was staring at her, she still reached out and lifted the patient's gown, revealing 2 snow-white breasts. The breasts were full of food, bulging, and much bigger than usual. They looked particularly majestic. The lids of the 2 granaries were obviously much bigger and fuller than usual. They were like 2 red gems, very attractive. You're really shameless." Shinta Tianin was a little shy. He quickly stuffed one into Xia Yang's mouth, and then stuffed one into Xia Yu's mouth, using the children to cover his embarrassment. Xia Yang and Xia Yu began to drink milk. They didn't care at all what their father was looking at. When Xia Tavong saw Xia Yu and Xia Yu drinking milk, he also cried. This time, Charlotte didn't wait for Tang Yuyin to call him. He took Xia Tavong into Tang Yuyin's arms and said with a smile, "Yuyin, our son is hungry. Feed him quickly." Tang Yuyin also rolled her eyes at Charlotte and said, "Just wait and see Tianin and I feed the children? Pervert." Charlotte, although that was what she said, Tang Yuyin still lifted the patient's gown and fed Xia Tavong milk. Her snow-white skin was the same as Liang Xiyao's. It was long and big, and it became even more impressive after it was filled with food. The lid of the granary was as clear as jade like agate. Looking at it, Charlotte could not help but feel a surge of heat and itch in his lower abdomen. Xia Tavong was eating with relish, and the sound of him smacking his lips had a magical quality to it. Tang Yuyin glared at Charlotte and said angrily, "Honey, don't look at me like that. I'm nervous when you look at me like that." Charlotte suddenly reached out and lifted her clothes, revealing her other snow-white breast. "What are you doing? Shameless." Tang Yuyin scolded her man, but she didn't do anything to stop him. "I'll show you how shameless I am today." Charlotte climbed onto the hospital bed and leaned into Tang Yuyin's arms. He held a granary in his mouth and started eating. Tang Yuyin was so embarrassed that she couldn't speak. There was no place on her face that wasn't red. "You're really shameless. You're fighting with your own son for food." Shinta Tianin supported Tang Yuyin. She looked at Charlotte's mouth, and her eyes were hot. That was what he said, but in her heart, she actually wanted Xia Lei to do the same to her. However, he didn't have a 3rd snow-white breast. Charlotte's original idea was to play a trick on Tang Yuyin, but it was this time that he suddenly realized that he didn't have any reaction to breast milk. Breast milk should be considered normal food, but when he ate it, he didn't feel the slightest discomfort. On the contrary, his stomach was like a piece of barren land that had been dry for a long time, and now it was welcoming a sweet dew. What's going on? How come I don't have any feeling of rejection? Could it be that breast milk is a normal food that I can eat? If I eat this kind of food every day, will my body delay turning into an energy body? This time, when he was fighting with his son for food, he inexplicably discovered that in this world, there was actually food that he could eat. It could even delay the time when his body turned into an energy body. For Charlotte, this was simply a huge harvest. "Quickly get up, stop eating." Tang Yuyin grabbed Charlotte's ear and gently twisted it. "If you continue eating, our son won't have anything to eat. I'll let you feed him." Only then did Charlotte get up from Tang Yuyin's arms. His tongue stuck out like a frog's tongue, and he licked a drop of milk stuck to the corner of his mouth into his mouth. So disgusting. Tang Yuyin looked very disgusted, but her clothes felt a little stuffy and moist. When it came to that kind of thing, women always said one thing and said the opposite of what they meant. Charlotte moved his gaze to Shinta Tianin. Shinta Tianin suddenly became nervous. "Don't even think about it. I have 2 children, one for each of us, and none for you." Charlotte smiled. "When they are full, I will eat some, okay?" Shinta Tianin, beep, 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 beep. In this warm and cheerful atmosphere, Charlotte's satellite phone suddenly rang. He answered the phone, and then said, "I have to go back to the company." Shinta Tianin and Tang Yuyin looked at each other at the same time, and then said in unison, "What happened?" Charlotte said, "I just received information that a fighter jet from the United States landed at the Incheon military base in South Korea, but it only stayed for an hour and then took off again. It flew in the direction of China, and I estimate that the fighter jet has entered the China deep territory." A fighter jet dares to invade China. Isn't the United States too bold? And that pilot, isn't he afraid of death? Tang Yuyin said. Although she was no longer working in 101 innings, she was still very concerned about such things. Charlotte said, "Didn't I fly a Kuan-Pung bomber to South Korea to participate in the Eboli Freedom Guardian military exercise? That guy will definitely fly a fighter jet designed by him to do the same thing. Our radar didn't find any suspicious targets, so I have to personally deal with this matter," Charlotte said. "Who is that guy?" Shinta Tianyin asked. Charlotte said, "Kirsten, the CEO of Lockheed Martin Corporation." "Ah, the CEO of Lockheed Martin Corporation actually did such a thing?" Shinta Tianyin couldn't believe it. Charlotte said, "You stay here. I'll meet him, and then I'll accompany you." "Be careful," Shinta Tianyin and Tang Yuyin said in unison. Half an hour later, at the headquarters of Rema Group in the capital, a black fighter jet entered the runway, then accelerated and rushed into the sky in the blink of an eye. In the cockpit, Charlotte said, "Don't be lazy, come out, it's time to work." Super Xiaoqian appeared in the narrow cockpit. She wasn't a female general, nor was she a female secretary, but a woman wrapped in a bath towel who had just come out of the shower. The white bath towel, the white full and tight body, was very fleshy and sexy. The pair of plump breasts pushed the bath towel up high, but only covered half of the ball, so that the deep cleavage was revealed, enough to drown a fish. Her perky but formed a round shape under the bath towel, the lines like the head of a dolphin or a ripe peach, extremely seductive. Even more exaggerated, she also simulated water droplets, her hair and skin full of water droplets. Those water droplets wet her bath towel, causing her body to be in a hazy, half-transparent state. Although Charlotte knew that she was fake, what was the difference between the scene in front of him and watching that kind of movie? "You bastard, I asked you to come out to work, not to come out to play coquettishly," Charlotte said unhappily. "Master, I was just taking a bath in the bathtub, and you asked me to come out. I didn't even have time to put on my clothes. I was so active, but you said that I was playing coquettishly. How heartless." Super Xiaoqian pouted her cherry lips, looking very wronged. Charlotte smiled bitterly. "All right, I was wrong." Super Xiaoqian smiled. "That's more like it." "Master, what's going on?" Charlotte said, "You've really become lazy recently. I've received information that Kirsten piloted his Dragon Slayer into China's airspace. He actually dared to come, damn it. That fool is simply courting death." Super Xiaoqian was very angry. She waved her pink fist, looking like she was about to beat someone up. Charlotte looked at her speechlessly, and just as he was about to say something, a white secret scene suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. Because Super Xiaoqian waved her pink fist too much, the bath towel on her suddenly fell off her body. In a narrow cockpit, there was a surging white blob, and the scenery was surging. If she was a real woman, it would make sense if she lost her bath towel, because she waved her fist around. But all of her images were created by her, so it was a little suspicious if she did that. Sorry. Super Xiaoqian slowly picked up the bath towel and tied it around her body. "Go to the back." Charlotte could not take it anymore. "Go to the back, why are you so fierce?" Super Xiaoqian mumbled as she sat in the passenger seat. She still maintained her bath towel and did not have any intention of changing it. Charlotte put away his messy emotions and thoughts, and he gave an order to Super Xiaoqian, "Find a way to find Kirsten for me." Super Xiaoqian went into work mode, and she said, "I've already collected all the radar data in China, and there are currently 308 aircraft active in the sky. There are 299 civilian airplanes and 9 fighter jets, but Kirsten's Dragon Slayer is nowhere to be seen. I believe that his Dragon Slayer also has the ability to become invisible, so we have to find it through other means." "What means?" "He must be in contact with some people or organizations in the United States. If I collect information from the United States, I might be able to find the whereabouts of him and the Dragon Slayer, Super Xiaoqian said. Charlotte thought for a moment and said, "It's just a guess, not an absolute, right?" Super Xiaoqian said, "Yes, it's just a probability, not an absolute. If he cuts off all contact like the last time we went to Korea, then he and the Dragon Slayer will be a ghost, and it will be very difficult for us to find him." "You can try. I'll try my way too," Charlotte said. "Your way? What is it?" Super Xiaoqian asked curiously. Charlotte suddenly pulled the control stick, and the nose of the Hades instantly stood up, and it flew higher into the sky like a rocket. Kirsten piloted the Dragon Slayer to invade China's territory, and his target would not be any other city, but Kyoto, where Rima Group was located. Kyoto was very big, but it also had a range. His plan was to fly higher into the sky and use his own eyes to find Kirsten and the Dragon Slayer. Once he found them, he would make sure that they would not be able to return. Yama flew up quickly, and Charlotte began to ponder a question in his heart. I clearly let Kirsten touch the box of the world for a long time. So why is he fine? Chapter 1249. Anyone who came into contact with the box of the world would either die or go insane. But Kirsten seemed to be an exception. This might have something to do with his physique. He also had an immune system that was far superior to humans. This might also have something to do with Zhu Xianyue. After all, Zhu Xianyue possessed technology from another world. As for what the exact reason was, he wouldn't be able to find out until he met Kirsten. The Hades ended its rocket-like ascent and changed course in the stratosphere to fly parallel to the ground. Under the belly of the plane was an endless layer of clouds. Gray clouds were moving in the wind, giving off the majestic aura of a magnificent army. Above his head was a vast starry sky. The stars that dotted the sky were distant and mysterious. Until now, humans had only landed on the moon, so their understanding of the universe was like a baby's understanding of the world. Charlotte shifted his gaze to the deep starry sky again. For some reason, he thought of the blurry human face hidden in the crystal skull. "My master, I'm under attack. That guy is protecting the CIB's Langley headquarters and the Pentagon that I want to enter. It's so stingy, I just want to go in and take a look." It was Super Xiaoqian's voice. She just wanted to enter the CIB's Langley headquarters and the Pentagon. Only Super Xiaoqian could say this. "You still haven't gotten rid of it." "Master, I'm fighting it every day and invading its territory. According to the current speed, in another 2 months, I will be able to attack its main body and completely kill it. I need more time to complete your orders," Super Xiaoqian said. Charlotte said, "By the time you take care of the Heavenly God system, that guy will probably have flown back to Korea. Also, even if you take care of the Heavenly God system, that guy might not have contacted anyone, so it's better to follow my method." "Master, you're so handsome. Whatever you say is right," Super Xiaoqian said. "Where did you learn to say that?" "On the internet." Charlotte was speechless. However, at this moment, a black shadow suddenly flashed across Xia Lei's vision. The black object was extremely fast, flashing past in front of him. It did not emit light by itself. The light was the reflection of the moon and stars shining on its body. It was a black fighter jet with a sci-fi design. It looked like a futuristic version of the F-22 Raptor. It was slightly larger than Hades, and it looked even more ferocious than Hades. Although it was his first time seeing it, Charlotte could tell that it was Lockheed Martin Corporation's superfighter, the Dragon Slayer. As expected, Kirsten still came to the capital. According to the Dragon Slayer's flight trajectory, it was heading toward the Rima Group's headquarters in the capital. The Hades jet instantly accelerated and flew towards the Dragon Slayer. The two fighter jets flew swiftly above the clouds. There was no agreement, but the two fighter jets seemed to have formed some sort of tacit understanding and were engaged in a speed race. Bang! The Dragon Slayer broke through the sound barrier, and his speed instantly skyrocketed. "Are you trying to compete in speed against the lighter and more stable King Yenluo of Hell? You're asking for it." A cold smile appeared on Charlotte's face. A second later, the Hades jet also broke through the sound barrier, and chased after the Dragon Slayer at an even faster speed. The Dragon Slayer was originally flying in front. If the Hades jet maintained a distance from it, the two fighter jets would not be able to track their speed. If the Dragon Slayer left the Hades jet further and further behind, the Dragon Slayer's speed would obviously be faster than the Hades jet. However, neither of these situations occurred. In less than 30 seconds, the Hades fighter jet caught up with the Dragon Slayer fighter jet, maintaining a parallel position with the Dragon Slayer fighter jet. The two fighter jets flew side by side, only tens of meters apart. Charlotte could see Kirsten in the cockpit of the Dragon Slayer, and Kirsten could also see Charlotte in the Hades jet. The two men looked at each other in the sky, and Kirsten gave Charlotte the middle finger. Charlotte's face was expressionless. He looked at Kirsten as if he was looking at a dead man. Was it necessary to be angry at a dead man? Super Xiaoqian, on the other hand, gave Kirsten the middle finger across the cockpit. The mutual middle finger greeting seemed to be a sign of escalating conflict. Just as Super Xiaoqian raised her white middle finger, the Dragon Slayer suddenly flew sideways, and when it tilted its belly, it launched an air-to-air missile from under its belly. Super Xiaoqian's voice suddenly came from the control system of the Hades jet. Warning, an AGM air-to-air missile is approaching. Lock has been removed. Left wing turned 45 degrees to avoid the AIM air-to-air missile's inertial trajectory. These voices did not come from Super Xiaoqian, who was sitting in the co-pilot's seat, but from one of her clones. This was the control system of the Hades jet, one of Super Xiaoqian's clones. It had the world's highest artificial intelligence and electronic warfare capabilities. Although the size of the Hades jet was only equivalent to a medium-sized fighter jet, in terms of its performance, it could even be used as an electronic fighter jet. Just now, the Dragon Slayer's AIM air-to-air missile had indeed locked onto the Hades jet, but that was only for 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds, Super Xiaoqian's clone had removed the AIM air-to-air missile's lock and calculated the angle to dodge. The Hades jet suddenly tilted to the left, and its parallel flight suddenly became tilted at a 45-degree angle. A second later, an AIM air-to-air missile that had lost its target flew under the belly of the Hades jet. TSK, I thought the Dragon Slayer was capable of something. I didn't expect it to be so weak. Kirsten, that idiot, actually dared to fly such an outdated fighter jet here. He must be out of his mind, Super Xiaoqian said. Charlotte controlled the Hades jet to chase after the Dragon Slayer and said, if not for the Hades jet, Kirsten's Dragon Slayer should be the world's most advanced fighter jet. Our radar didn't detect it, which means that it has the ability to become invisible. Its air-to-air missile can lock onto the Hades jet, which is also an amazing performance. The AIM air-to-air missile is known as the world's most advanced aerial combat missile, but in front of the Hades jet, it can only be used as a spear or a slingshot. I understand. Master, are you praising your Hades jet by praising the Dragon Slayer? Super Xiaoqian said. Charlotte, in a life and death battle, the person controlling the jet was chatting with a woman who didn't exist, and there wasn't the slightest bit of tension. In fact, from the attitude of Charlotte and Super Xiaoqian, one could see the difference between the Dragon Slayer jet and the Hades jet. If the Dragon Slayer could really threaten the Hades jet, then Charlotte wouldn't be so relaxed. Lock onto it and shoot it down, Charlotte ordered. Super Xiaoqian said, I've locked onto it. You need to press the launch button to launch the missile. My master, you're getting lazier and lazier. Charlotte pressed the launch button. Whoosh! A lightning air-to-air missile specially made for the Rema Group Hades jet flew out of the weapon bay and headed straight for the tail of the Dragon Slayer. Beep, beep, beep. The alarm of being locked onto by the missile sounded in the cockpit of the Dragon Slayer, and Kirsten immediately became nervous. He fired the interference bomb. Bang, bang, bang. The interference bomb exploded behind the Dragon Slayer, and a blinding fire burned, accompanied by white smoke. The function of the interference bomb was to interfere with infrared guided missile attacks, and it was the most commonly used self-defense weapon in the world for ships and aircraft. Infrared guidance was the mainstream technology of air-to-air missiles in the world. Because of the different nature of aerial combat, The small air-to-air missiles couldn't be installed with satellite guidance devices installed in mid-range or long-range missiles. Although the Lightning air-to-air missile was specially made for the Hades jet by the Rema Group, it couldn't escape the limitations of infrared guidance. After all, it was too small. Boom! The Lightning air-to-air missile hit the defensive barrier formed by the interference bomb and exploded. Damn it! Why is that guy's fighter jet so strong? Kirsten's face was filled with fear in the cockpit of the Dragon Slayer. On his way to the capital of China, he didn't encounter any trouble, and his confidence was inflated to the extreme, thinking that his Dragon Slayer was the most advanced fighter jet in the world. However, after fighting with Charlotte's Hades jet, he realized that it was just his wishful thinking. In terms of speed, the Hades jet was faster than the Dragon Slayer. In terms of intelligence and combat performance, the Dragon Slayer jet was also inferior to the Hades jet. Because he had just fired the AIM air-to-air missile, the Hades jet only used 2 seconds to remove the lock, turning the missile into a spear. The Hades jet didn't use any interference bombs at all. Now that he was in such a sorry state, how was he going to fight the next battle? Although Kirsten was extremely unwilling, he still made the right decision in the shortest time possible, which was to escape. The Dragon Slayer suddenly descended into the clouds, and then flew toward the direction of Shi Province. The captain of the Hades jet, Super Xiaoqian, cursed. That idiot escaped. The radar isn't working. I can't lock onto it. Charlotte sneered. He can come and go as he pleases? What does he think China is? The Hades jet roared, and then it flew toward the direction of Shi Province, sticking close to the clouds. Kirsten and his Dragon Slayer jet indeed had the ability to become invisible. Even the onboard radar of the Hades jet couldn't lock onto it, but it couldn't escape Charlotte's eyes. Just as the Dragon Slayer entered the clouds, Charlotte's eyes had already locked onto it, and he chased after it above the clouds. At this time, Charlotte could open fire at any time, but he didn't do so. Below the 2 fighter jets was the capital with the highest population density in the world. If he shot down a Dragon Slayer here, it was unknown how many people would die when the wreckage of the Dragon Slayer fell. He wanted to wait until Kirsten and the Dragon Slayer escaped to an environment he wanted, and then he could open fire and shoot down the Dragon Slayer. One of the 2 fighter jets was in the clouds, and the other was flying above the clouds. The bustling capital was left behind, getting further and further away. Chapter 1250. Half an hour later. Damn it, why can't I get rid of it? In the cockpit of the Dragon Slayer, Kissen slammed the control stick hard. Initially, when he flew from the Incheon military base in Korea, Kissen's plan was to fly around Kyoto and take dozens of high-definition bird's-eye view photos. Then, he would go to the Rema Group's headquarters in Kyoto and launch 2 air-to-ground missiles at the Rema Group's headquarters. Then, he would take photos as a souvenir. Finally, he returned to the Incheon military base. However, this plan was ruined, and the speed of its destruction was faster than he had imagined. A cruel reality had been placed in front of Kissen. The Lockheed Martin Corporation's Dragon Slayer was no match for the Rema Group's Hades. If he had to use the Dragon Slayer to kill the Hades, the loss ratio would be 10-1. He had always thought that he was the smartest person in the world, and the Dragon Slayer fighter jet that he had researched and designed should be the most advanced fighter jet in the world. In the sky, it should be able to crush Xia Lei's Hades fighter jet. But this exchange had shattered all of his fantasies of how it should be. We have entered the sky above China's Shi Province. This is the roof of the world. The air is thin, and there are almost no clouds. A man's voice came from the Dragon Slayer speaker system. This was the voice of the Heavenly System's clone that controlled the Dragon Slayer system. Compared to Super Xiaoqian, it was less human, let alone Super Xiaoqian's coquettish and seductive aura. There were almost no clouds in the sky, which meant that there was no barrier. Once it was exposed to Charlotte's vision, the consequences were self-evident. Warning: the fighter has been locked on by the enemy. The Heavenly System's voice notification was cold and stiff, without a hint of human feeling. Whoosh! A lightning air-to-air missile was launched from the Hades' weapon bay. The Dragon Slayer fired another interference missile. Bang, bang, bang. The interference missile burned in the air, forming a barrier of flames and debris. Boom! The lightning air-to-air missile exploded in the air. The Dragon Slayer fled in panic, but the distance between it and the Hades was shrinking. It would only take a few minutes at most for the Hades to catch up. Warning! The interference bombs have been used up. The Heavenly God System's notification sounded. F***CK. Kirsten roared angrily. The series of failures had caused him to lose control of his emotions. He felt like a mouse being teased by a cat, and Charlotte was the cat. Warning! The fighter jet has been locked on. B***starred. Kirsten roared. Shut up. The Heavenly God System did not shut up. Its voice was still as cold and stiff as before, without a hint of human emotion. Warning! The fighter jet has been locked on. Kirsten turned on the public channel and sent a request for dialogue. On the King of Hell. My master, that idiot sent a request for a conversation. Do you want to give him a missile or talk to him? Listening to Super Xiaoqian's voice was completely different. She sounded more like a woman than a real woman. Charlotte's finger moved away from the launch button. He said, "Connect the conversation. He can't escape anymore. I want to hear what he has to say." "It's connected," Super Xiaoqian said. Kirsten's voice came from the King of Hell's speaker system. Charlotte. His voice was also filled with anger and unwillingness. "You have to think about the consequences of killing me. Are you trying to remind me of Isatab's existence?" Charlotte said into the transmitter. "Where's she right now?" "She's nearby. If you kill me, she'll take revenge on you," Kirsten threatened. "She's nearby? Are you afraid?" "Ha ha ha." Charlotte laughed. "So you're afraid of death. You actually want to use such a childish lie to escape. If you're so afraid of death, why did you still dare to come? Are you trying to prove that you're smarter and stronger than me? You've indeed proven it, but what you've proven is that you're just a coward. Do you think I escaped to Shi province by accident? She's right here. If you dare kill me, she'll definitely take revenge on you." Kirsten continued to emphasize Isatab's existence. Charlotte laughed coldly. "You're just a dog raised by Isatab. Do you think she'll take revenge for a dog? Don't be naive. She doesn't even care about the real Da Vinci, much less a replica like you." "Shut up. I'm not a replica. I'm irreplaceable to her." "Are these the last words you want to say to me? If so, you can shut up now. I'll send you to hell." Charlotte's finger moved to the launch button. Kirsten's sick laughter came from the King of Hell's speaker system. "Charlotte, don't you think it's strange? Everyone who has touched the box of the world has either died or gone insane, but I'm perfectly fine." Charlotte's finger could no longer press the button. "What are you trying to say? Do you want to know the answer? Come down and get it." Kirsten's voice sounded. "Come down and get it?" Charlotte's heart skipped a beat. But before he could say anything, the cockpit of the Dragon Slayer in front of him suddenly opened. Kirsten and his seat shot out with a whoosh. Kirsten fell, and the Dragon Slayer plunged toward the rolling Himalayan mountains below. "Damn it, Master, that guy wants to destroy the Dragon Slayer. He won't even give it to you." Super Xiaoqian was furious. "Can you take over it? Its cockpit is already open. Can you hack into the control system of the Dragon Slayer?" This thought instantly appeared in Charlotte's mind. "Let me try." Super Xiaoqian disappeared in an instant. To do this, her doppelganger was obviously not enough. She had to do it herself. Just as Super Xiaoqian disappeared, Charlotte pushed the control stick of the King of Hell's cockpit forward. The nose of the King of Hell's cockpit suddenly lowered, and it dived towards the ground like a meteor. A parachute opened in the air, and below the parachute was Kirsten and his seat. At this moment, as long as Charlotte activated the machine gun on the aircraft, he would be able to shoot Kirsten into pieces with one round of fire. Kirsten's face was pale because he knew that his fate was no longer in his hands. As long as Charlotte moved his finger slightly, he would disappear from this world. If that was the case, he would never be able to accept it. He had only been in this world for less than 2 years, and he missed everything in this world, especially money and power. The King of Hell's cockpit flew one round around Kirsten and his parachute. Then, its engine suddenly changed its position. Instead of shooting backward, it shot downward. This was vertical takeoff and landing technology. This technology had existed for a long time, but almost all the fighter jets that used this technology had been retired. This was because this technology was not mature. Other than the advantage of being able to take off and land in complex terrain, it had almost all its disadvantages. However, the King of Hell's cockpit still used this technology. Judging from its current performance, it had already made use of the advantages of this technology to a perfect degree. With a hypersonic flight speed of almost Mach 5, the agility of a bird's spirit fire, the ability to become invisible, and the ability to take off and land vertically, the King of Hell's cockpit did not need anyone to evaluate it. It was already the world's most advanced and strongest fighter jet. Looking at the King of Hell's cockpit that was descending vertically, Kirsten's heart was dead. In his heart, he was extremely unwilling to admit that Charlotte was the smartest person in this world, but the truth was already placed in front of him. The setback this time made him feel that Xia Lei was like a mountain that he couldn't climb over. Such a feeling was worse than killing a proud person like Kirsten. It was this feeling that made him angry. He shouted at Charlotte, who was sitting in the cockpit of the King of Hell's cockpit. "What's wrong? You don't dare to open fire and kill me? I'm one of Isatab's people. You're nothing in her eyes. You're just a pawn with some value. Even if you catch me, you can only let me go." In the cockpit of the King of Hell's cockpit, Charlotte shifted his gaze and looked at Kirsten expressionlessly. The look in his eyes was as if he was looking at a stray dog. "Don't even think about getting the Dragon Slayer. Lockheed Martin Corporation will improve the Dragon Slayer. Your fighter jet will not be without opponents." Kirsten's voice traveled far in the wind. At this moment, the Dragon Slayer that he had abandoned crashed into a mountain peak. "Ha ha!" Kirsten let out a sick laugh. The Dragon Slayer was his blood, sweat, and tears. Many of the key technologies were provided by Isatab. That was why he could not bear to destroy it. However, he had no choice. He could not let Charlotte get the Dragon Slayer. If Charlotte got the Dragon Slayer, it would mean that China got the Dragon Slayer. China would then obtain the most advanced fighter jet technology and secrets of the United States. The Dragon Slayer was only 100 meters away from the mountain peak. Kirsten was still laughing, but his heart was in extreme pain. Suddenly, the Dragon Slayer's nose went up and its body went up. The belly of the plane almost brushed past a rock on the mountain peak. This! Kirsten was stunned. The smile on his face froze as if it was glued to his face. The Dragon Slayer rose in altitude and flew in the direction of Kyoto. "This is impossible." Kirsten roared crazily. "How can you take over my fighter jet?" The cockpit of the King of Hell's cockpit opened, and Charlotte poked his head out. He was not wearing a pilot's helmet at all. He first smiled at Kirsten, then said in a loud voice, "Because you are an idiot." Kirsten felt as if his mouth had been stuffed with moldy, rotten vegetable leaves. The feeling was unbearable. He, Leonardo da Vinci, was once recognized as the smartest person in the world. Charlotte had actually called him an idiot in front of him. After cursing, Charlotte's right hand reached out from the cockpit. There was a Viper pistol in his hand. Seeing the Viper pistol in Charlotte's hand, Kirsten's heart instantly sank into the icy valley of the Himalayas. "You say that I don't dare to kill you? But I feel that killing you like this is too easy on you, so I have a better way to deal with you. What are you trying to do?" Kirsten roared at Charlotte. Bang! There was a gunshot, and a bullet shot out from the muzzle of the Viper pistol. It plunged into Kirsten's right knee. Kirsten could not dodge, but he did not scream after being shot in the knee. "You are a man," Charlotte said. Then, he fired a second shot without hesitation. Bang! A flower of blood and broken bones bloomed on Kirsten's left knee. Kirsten could not hold it in anymore and screamed. Chapter 1251. Being shot in the knee. Even if the gunshot wound healed, it would leave a disability in the future because the knee did not have any muscle tissue to slow down the destructive force of the bullet. The bullet would destroy the bone marrow, and nerves, which could not be recovered. With these two shots, Kirsten would never be able to walk normally for the rest of his life. As he screamed, Kirsten pulled out his pistol from the holster. The moment he pulled out his pistol, he even fantasized that he could hit the Hades that Charlotte was piloting with the pistol. Just like in the movies, the bullet would hit the fuel tank and blow it up. However, while this fantasy was still lingering in his mind, the third bullet flew out from the vial-tongue pistol and hit his right wrist that was holding the gun. A bullet hole suddenly appeared on his right wrist, and his hand could no longer hold the pistol. The pistol fell from his hand. Kirsten clenched his teeth to prevent himself from screaming. He glared at Charlotte, who was in the cockpit of the Hades. His eyes were like an injured beast. Charlotte was also looking at Kirsten, but he did not fire another 4 shots. Kirsten was like a turtle in a jar. He could catch him easily, so he was not in a hurry to kill Kirsten. The Hades landed at the foot of a mountain. When Charlotte jumped out of the cockpit, Kirsten landed on the ground with his parachute. Charlotte walked toward Kirsten. Kirsten climbed out of the pilot's seat and pulled out his military knife with his left hand. He was ready to fight to the death. However, facing Charlotte, who was closing in on him, he did not have the slightest confidence. He crawled backwards subconsciously, but Charlotte was getting closer and closer to him. Xiaolei's lips curled into a smile. Mr. Kirsten, put down the knife unless you want to commit suicide with it. But you have to think this through. If you kill yourself, it's none of my business. Kirsten threw the military knife in his left hand at Charlotte. Xiaolei did not even try to dodge. He reached out with his left hand and caught the military knife that was flying at him. Kill me. Kirsten's expression was ferocious. Kill me, you yellow-skinned pig. Charlotte stopped beside Kirsten and said indifferently, You want to infuriate me so that I can give you a quick death, right? Do you think it will work? Don't be complacent. Your end will be even more miserable than mine. Xiaolei squatted beside Kirsten. Then, shall we 2 people with miserable fates have a good talk? Kirsten spat a mouthful of blood at Charlotte. Charlotte dodged the attack with a tilt of his head and punched Kirsten in the stomach. Ugh! Kirsten spat out a mouthful of blood and undigested food. His body slid back almost 2 meters on the ground before he stopped. Charlotte's punch almost knocked him out. Charlotte returned to Kirsten's side. He raised his foot and stepped on Kirsten. He looked down from above, his eyes cold. Kirsten, you have 2 choices. Listen carefully, I won't repeat myself. First, die. Second, tell me where Izitab is and what she's been doing recently. Tell me, and I'll let you go. I'm a man of my word. If the crystal skull was here, he wouldn't need to ask any questions. He could just use the crystal skull to disturb Kirsten's brainwaves and steal the relevant information from Kirsten's brain. However, the crystal skull wasn't here, so he couldn't use the same method to steal information from Kirsten's brain. His time was getting closer and closer, and it was important for Charlotte to know where Zhu Xianyue was. I told you, she's nearby, but you didn't believe me, Kirsten said. Charlotte frowned slightly. Kirsten had said this more than once, but he didn't believe it at all. Zhu Xianyue was in the Xi province. What was she doing there? The Xi province was sparsely populated. If she was hunting here, she might as well be hunting in India. If she wasn't hunting, could her target be the Xanadu that was under construction? Thinking of the last possibility, Charlotte's back broke out in cold sweat. Ha! Kirsten laughed. I see fear in your eyes. You'll never be a match for Izitab. If she wants you to live, you'll live. If she wants you to die, you'll die. You're going against her? You don't have the right. You're just a chess piece. A chess piece should have its fate. When the time comes, you'll die. Anger rose in Charlotte's heart. He had the urge to kill Kirsten, but he suppressed the urge because it wasn't time yet. Chess piece, that was what Kirsten always said. Although Charlotte didn't want to admit it, judging from everything that had happened, he was indeed Zhu Xianyue and Prehistoric's only chess piece. Moreover, he was a common chess piece. He had something that Zhu Xianyue and Prehistoric both wanted, or perhaps it was a common goal. What was it? That was something he had to figure out. If he died before he could figure it out, Zhu Xianyue and Prehistoric would be able to take something from him. He wouldn't be satisfied even if he died. Kirsten was still laughing. His laughter was filled with mockery and hatred. However, Charlotte suppressed the anger and the urge to kill in his heart. He squatted down beside Kirsten again and said in a gentle voice, "Mr. Kirsten, don't you think it's funny? We've been fighting to the death here, but it seems like our fates have been decided. You're Izatab's subordinate, and you're loyal to her. But you're human, and you're one of her kind. In her eyes, you're really just a dog that will bite people for her. She wants to turn this world into her hunting ground, waiting for her kind to hunt. Even if I don't kill you today, what do you think will happen to you when that day comes? There's an old saying in China that goes like this: when the cunning hare is killed, the hound is cooked. When the food becomes scarce, you'll become food for her or her kind." Oomph. Do you think you can convince me with that kind of argument? Don't waste your energy. No, you've misunderstood. I'm just trying to be polite before resorting to force. Charlotte's general knife was pressed against Kirsten's thigh, and he slowly moved it toward Kirsten's injured knee. He said, "My condition hasn't changed. Tell me what I want to know, and you'll live and grow old. You might even meet a woman you love and have children with her. Isn't that great? What if I don't? I'll make your life worse than death, and then kill me. No, I'll eat you." Charlotte's eyes quietly changed. His natural pupils quickly turned black, like two black holes that were forming rapidly. Kirsten was stunned. His voice was filled with fear. You, how is this possible?" Charlotte suddenly stabbed the tip of the military knife into Kirsten's right knee. The kneecap that had already been shattered was heavily injured again, and blood gushed out. The pain reached its peak, and Kirsten couldn't take it anymore. He screamed and grabbed Charlotte's wrist with his left hand subconsciously, but Charlotte stabbed the military knife into his knee again. He opened his mouth and kept sucking in air. He didn't even have time to scream, and he didn't dare to grab Charlotte's hand again. Charlotte stopped, and his voice was cold. "I'll give you one last chance. If I don't get the answer I want, I'll cut off your legs, you D*CK, and then cut open your abdomen to pull out your intestines. There are eagles here. Doesn't your body have a strong survival ability? You'll definitely have the chance to watch the eagles eat your intestines. You're a demon. Everyone has a demon in their heart. You're the one who awakened the demon in mine, so you'll have to face it." Charlotte slashed down with his knife, and he was really going to cut off Kirsten's leg. At the same time, the mysterious energy in Charlotte's body was awakened. He used some kind of energy field to wrap Kirsten up and prepare to eat. In the past, he hated this method, and he would rather die than follow it. However, people would always change their initial decision according to the changes in their environment. No one could face death calmly, and he couldn't either. Other than death, there were people that he couldn't let go of, and that was his wife and children. To protect his wife and children, and to survive, he didn't hesitate to become a real demon. If eating was the only way for him to become stronger, then he would hunt. From the perspective of food, a person like Kirsten was obviously a top ingredient. Kirsten seemed to have realized something from the obvious darkening change on Charlotte's body, and the belief that he had been holding on to crumbled quickly. Just as his brain started to feel dizzy and his heart rate started to slow down, he finally broke down completely. "I'll tell you." Charlotte's eyes returned to normal, but the knife was still stuck in Kirsten's knee. He had to maintain his pressure on Kirsten, so he said coldly, "Speak. Isotab's operation has escalated." Kirsten stopped talking at this point. He was afraid of the consequences of betraying Isotab. Charlotte's hand that was holding the knife suddenly slashed down. He was extremely strong, and the sharp knife cut Kirsten's knee in half. Breathe. Kirsten gasped for air. "Speak." Charlotte roared angrily. "I won't give you any more chances." Kirsten panted. "The information I received is not complete." Do you remember the 6 energy bars?" "Of course I remember. I've seen them in Area 51 and the underground pyramid in Nigeria's Forest of No Return. What is Isotab going to do with them?" "I'm not sure, but I know that there is an energy bar at every place where the Hellhound virus is spreading. Korea will be the next place to have an outbreak. Other than blowing up your office building and your home, my other goal is to bring an energy bar to Korea. Now, I believe it has already been activated." Charlotte's expression changed. So, the energy bar was the source of the Hellhound virus. Wherever it went, the virus would spread. If the Hellhound virus broke out in Korea, it would be difficult for China to prevent the virus from invading China. The Hellhound virus first broke out in Nigeria, then India and Mexico, and now Korea. If each energy bar contaminated an area, where would the remaining two be? Nigeria, India, Mexico, and now Korea. Where would the remaining two be? I don't know. I really don't know. Isatab only asked me to bring the energy bar to the designated place. She was the one who gave me the specific coordinates. Do you think she would explain to me why she did that? Kirsten's lips curled into a bitter smile. But I know that the end of this world is approaching. No one can stop her, and neither can you. The three areas where the Hellhound virus had already broken out, and Korea, where the virus was about to break out. These four areas seemed to have been randomly chosen by Zhu Xianyue, but Charlotte had a feeling that there must be some kind of pattern or inevitability in the places that Zhu Xianyue had chosen. With Kirsten's identity as a dog, it was not surprising that he did not know this secret. You said that Isatab is in Shi province. What is her goal? Charlotte asked. Chapter 1252. Your shelter. That was Keston's answer. Charlotte's heart felt like it had been struck by a heavy blow, almost suffocating him. She wants to turn this world into a hunting ground. She definitely won't tolerate the existence of a shelter. Keston's lips curled into a sickly smile. She wants to destroy your shelter. You want to build a safe haven for your women and children? You're dreaming. Do you know why? Because your children are the best food in this world to her. She wants to become stronger. She won't let go of any good food. Charlotte's heart was burning with rage. At that moment, he wanted to tear Zhu Xianyue apart, drink her blood, eat her flesh, and smash her bones into powder. Ha ha ha! Keston's voice was hoarse and filled with schadenfreude. Are you afraid? Yes, you should be afraid because you can't win against her. Even if she wants to use your wives and children as food, you can't do anything about it. I actually pity you. You seem to have everything, but you're just a pawn, a pitiful pawn. You can't even protect your women and children. Charlotte used guns and knives to torture Keston, while Keston used his words to torture Charlotte. Charlotte was indeed in pain. The faces of his 7 children and their mother kept appearing in his mind. If he lost any one of them, he would be in so much pain that he wanted to die. You said I'm a dog, I admit. But to me, you're not a dog, right? And you're an even more pitiful dog. Not only will you die, you won't even be able to protect your kennel. Ha ha! Seeing Charlotte in pain, Keston was very happy and could not help but mock him. Charlotte did not seem to hear Keston's mockery. After a moment of silence, he said, Mr. Keston, didn't you once say that I'm Isatabu's pawn? Do you know what she wants from me? Keston shook his head. I don't know. Then what do you know? Keston smiled. Go ask her. If she's willing to tell you the answer, you'll know the answer. But I believe that you won't know the answer until you die. Ha ha! Charlotte suddenly reached out and grabbed Keston's neck. Keston's laughter stopped abruptly. He watched as Xia Lei's eyes turn into black holes in an instant. Fear once again emerged in his heart and spread throughout his body. He wanted to say something, but Charlotte's hand tightened around his neck. He found it difficult to even breathe, let alone speak. You've successfully infuriated me. You've done well, so you'll have to bear my wrath. Charlotte's voice was as cold as a knife. You agree. Keston managed to squeeze out some words. But right after that, he felt his heartbeat slow down and his fear reached its peak. He could clearly feel that his life was being sucked away by a whirlpool. He even had a feeling that something was eating his brain. This was the first time Charlotte actively devoured someone's brain. Keston was a copy of Leonardo da Vinci using Zhu Xianyue's technology from another world. She then added the energy she devoured into Keston's body to make him even stronger. Now all of this was his. A minute later, Keston's head drooped down. His eyes were gray and there was no sign of life. Charlotte released his grip and Keston laid on the ground, motionless. All the wounds on his body were no longer bleeding. He was already dead, completely dead. But what he gave Charlotte was not only his brain's energy, but also something more important. It was a clear process, On the snowy mountain near Xanadu, Charlotte had been forced by his father, Xia Changha, to devour many hypnotized Special Forces soldiers as well as those infected with the Hellhound virus. But be it the Special Forces soldiers or those infected with the Hellhound virus, the devouring process was very fast. He did not feel anything special before it was over. That was why he did not know what he was devouring. He only guessed that it was the brain's energy or the soul's energy. But this time, he used a full minute to complete the devouring process that would have been over in a second. In this 1 minute, he finally figured out the problem that he could not figure out in the past. In the past minute, he could clearly feel Keston's brain shrinking. His blood was disappearing, his organs were failing, and his muscles were losing their elasticity. His act of devouring was like a water pump that sucked away all the life in Keston's body, including his soul. The concept of the soul had been around since a long time ago, but until today, no one could prove the existence of the soul. The famous saying of 21 grams of soul was still not accepted, but this time, Charlotte could clearly feel the existence of the soul. It was in the human brain. When a human was born in a woman's womb, there was a chaotic consciousness in the brain, and that was the original soul. It was the most important part of life, and also the mark of the universe. The universe started as a chaotic explosion. It was born, it expanded, and it had its own path of evolution. Humans started as a chaotic consciousness and slowly grew up, giving birth to the next generation and contributing to the evolution of the human race. The universe gave birth to everything, and everything had the mark of the universe. The chaotic consciousness at the birth of a human was the mark of the universe. It gradually grew and became the soul. It recorded every detail of the evolution of the human race and gradually adjusted to adapt to the changes in the environment. At the same time, it strengthened itself and moved towards a more perfect direction. A simple example would be that a child born in the year 2000 would definitely be smarter than a child born in the year 1000. 1,000 years ago, the average lifespan of a human was only 35 years, but now it was 75 years. This was not only because of the progress of civilization, but also because of the power of evolution. What Charlotte devoured from Keston was this power of evolution. This power existed in everything in the universe. Even a rock or a blade of grass had the mark of the universe, and they all had the power of evolution. The only difference was whether they were stronger or weaker. Charlotte had never been able to unravel the secret of the AE capsule, but now he had. AE was the abbreviation of artificial evolution, which translated to artificial evolution. The powder in the AE capsule contained the power of evolution. He had taken the AE capsule, and the energy of evolution had been lurking in his body, subtly transforming his body. The welding accident was a trigger that activated the power of evolution in his body. The energy that he called mysterious energy had been lurking in his brain all this time. It had fused with the brand at the beginning of his birth, which was his soul. The body was only the residence of the soul. In this universe, nothing would truly disappear, including the soul. Matter and energy were always changing, adjusting, survival of the fittest, and advancing on the path of evolution. The evolution of everything was adapting to the evolution of the universe, and those who could not keep up would be eliminated. Therefore, from this perspective, the chaotic consciousness at the beginning of the human race was the mark of the universe, which was the soul of the human race. But were the souls of millions of people not part of the soul of the universe? Everything in the universe was in the universe, and the universe was a whole. So everything was a part of the universe, including the soul of the human race. When a person died, the universe would reclaim the chaotic consciousness. And the power that the prehistoric chosen one, Zhu Xianyue, and himself possessed, was actually stealing something that the universe wanted to reclaim, which was the power of evolution. Life force and the soul developed from the mark of the universe formed the power of evolution. And this was the secret of the mysterious power. If there was a proper name for this power, Charlotte felt that the power of the mark was very suitable because it was developed from the first mark of the universe. This also explained why Zhu Xianyue wanted to turn this world into a hunting ground. There were billions of people in this world, and each of them carried the mark of the universe, and the power of evolution developed from the mark. This power allowed her and her kind to evolve ahead of time, catching up to the pace of the evolution of the universe, and avoid being eliminated by the law of evolution of the universe. Such behavior was unacceptable and unforgivable in the eyes of humans. But since when did humans care about the feelings of chickens and ducks? For the sake of survival, humans ate and destroyed other species while catching up to the pace of the evolution of the universe. Now, the same thing was happening to humans. Zhu Xianyue and her kind saw humans as food and ate them to catch up to the pace of the evolution of the universe. The secret of the AE capsule and the mysterious power was solved, but some new questions were also raised. And that was, who sealed the powder that contained the power of the mark in that piece of amber? Why was he the one who ate the capsules? What did Zhu Xianyue and the prehistoric chosen one want from him? These questions could not be answered. Keston might be right, but he might not be able to find out the answer until he died. Zhu Xianyue and the prehistoric chosen one must have known the answer. But would the two players tell the truth to a chess piece that was prepared to die? Obviously not. Charlotte shifted his gaze away from Keston's body, took out his satellite phone, and dialed a number. The call was quickly connected, and Xian Jun's voice came from the satellite phone. "Boss, what's the situation? Evacuate Shangri-La immediately, quick." Charlotte's voice was filled with anxiety. "What happened? Why do we have to evacuate? Don't ask why, just do it now." Charlotte roared into the satellite phone. His emotions were already out of control. Qian Jun's voice came from the satellite phone. "All right, we'll evacuate immediately. 4 Yun, 20 transport planes have just finished unloading. We could take the transport planes and leave. Then go quickly. Go to Lesau first. I'll look for you when you're there. I'll explain everything to you," Charlotte said. "All right." Qian Jun hung up. Charlotte looked around, his gaze sweeping across the snowy peaks and valleys, but he did not see Zhu Xianyue. Was Zhu Xianyue really in this mountain? He could not be sure if Keston was lying to him. But even if it was a lie, he had to take it seriously because he could not bear the consequences of telling the truth. 2 minutes later, the Hades fighter jet lifted off the ground, and when it reached a height of 100 meters, it suddenly accelerated toward Shangri-La. He had ordered his men to leave Shangri-La, but he had to stay there and wait for his fated strongest enemy, Zhu Xianyue. Chapter 1253. Deep in the Himalayas, Xanadu. The Hades landed on the runway. Charlotte jumped out of the cockpit and walked toward the gate of Xanadu. The gate was at least 10 meters high and was made of alloy. It was closed and no one was guarding it. There was no light in the base. It was dark. A snowflake fell from the sky and fell on Charlotte's face. The snowflake did not melt. After a pause, it was blown away by the cold wind. Charlotte's skin had almost lost all its temperature, but he did not feel cold at all. In the past, he did not understand why there would be such a phenomenon of loss of temperature after the body started a comprehensive evolution. Now it seemed that this was the inevitable trend of evolution. Most of the environments in the universe had no temperature. To survive in those environments, it was inevitable that the human body must undergo corresponding evolutionary adjustments. There was no need for temperature or ordinary food. The heavy alloy gate opened and Charlotte walked in. Everyone had evacuated. The base was quiet, and the sound of the wind and snow was the only sound. Charlotte's eyes quickly swept the entire base. The temporary housing area, the buildings that had been built, the material warehouse, and the construction machinery. He did not find Zhu Xianyue. Kirsten's statement now seemed more like a lie that deliberately made him nervous and uncomfortable. Charlotte took out the satellite phone and dialed Qian Jun's number again. "Where are you now?" Qian Jun's voice came. "We are on the way to Lesau." "Boss, what happened?" "They're all guessing, and we are all worried about you," Charlotte said. Go to Lessa and wait for me to find you. As for the reason, I will tell you when I come. Also, don't worry about me. I'm fine. Boss, Charlotte had hung up the phone. He stood in the open space in the center of the base. The wind and snow were blowing on him, but he did not move. He stood in the wind and snow and waited like a stone statue. 10 minutes later, Zhu Xinyue did not appear, but Super Xiaoqian appeared. She projected herself from the multi-function watch on Charlotte's wrist and stood in front of Charlotte. She was wearing a mink coat, a mink hat, and red lipstick. She looked like a female nouveau riche from the Northeast. The appearance of the snowstorm, the woman in the mink, and Super Xiaoqian immediately caused the desolate and austere atmosphere to disappear. In its place was a strange style that many people could not identify. Charlotte looked at her blankly, not saying a word. He didn't even bother to ask about the whereabouts of the captured Dragon Slayer fighter jet. After unraveling the secret of the mysterious energy and seeing the tragic future of mankind, how much interest could he have in a fighter jet? My master, what happened to you? You look so down. Super Xiaoqian's tone was full of concern and worry. I'm fine. Charlotte came back to his senses. I need you to do something for me. Are you talking about the Dragon Slayer? I've already set it to autopilot and let it fly to the Rema Group's headquarters in the capital. I've also sent a notice to the military and briefly described the matter. You'll see the Dragon Slayer when you get back, Super Xiaoqian said. Charlotte said, That's not what I want you to do. Then what is it? Immediately use the Holy Thunder Spy satellite to scout the Himalayas and find a woman, Zhu Xinyue. I have her photo on my computer. Use the authority I gave you, and you can enter my hacker's computer to see what she looks like. I've already seen what she looks like. She's not as beautiful as I am, Super Xiaoqian said. Charlotte was not in the mood to joke with her at all. He said, It's good that you've seen it. Immediately use the Holy Thunder Spy satellite to scout the Himalayas. You must find her for me. What if you can't find her in the Himalayas? Then start your facial recognition system and look for her all over the world. No matter what method you use, you must find her for me. The Holy Thunder Spy satellite has already started working, Super Xiaoqian said. Charlotte nodded and looked up at the sky that was shrouded in darkness. There was still some time before dawn, and now was the darkest period. Super Xiaoqian said, Master, the other order you gave me is also being executed. I've chosen several targets: Apple, Microsoft, and Google. These companies that produce software and systems are the easiest to deal with. I'll make their software and systems full of loopholes. I'll release the source code that allows them to monopolize the market. I've already used that money to buy the stocks of those companies. After I announce it, I'll sell them like crazy. Even if they have the cash reserves to buy back my stocks, they won't be able to turn the tide with the dumping of trillions of dollars. I estimate that the current market price of more than $100 will fall to $10 after my attack. Apple and Microsoft play the role of raising flags in the U.S. economy. Once they fall, it will form a domino effect. Charlotte had originally lost interest in these things, but when he heard the target and method of attack that Super Xiaoqian had chosen, he finally became interested. His mood was always a little better. He said, Xiaoqian, well done. Your plan is very good. Go according to your plan. After being praised, Super Xiaoqian's face showed a happy smile. I've given my plan a name. Well, it's called the Cut the Bikini Plan. What? Charlotte was stunned. Cut the bikini? A plan that could damage the U.S. economy should have a high-end name, such as the Third World's Revenge, Red Lightning, or something. However, she had chosen such a strange name as Cut the Bikini. Charlotte really didn't know what to say to her. Super Xiaoqian looked serious. Master, look at your disgusted eyes. The name I came up with is very good. Think about it. What can you see when you cut the bikini? Secrets, those secrets that can't see the light of day. I cut the bikini of those companies so that their things can't see the light of day will be exposed, and then their companies will become worthless. Such a good idea. Aren't you going to praise me? Charlotte smiled bitterly. Well, whatever you say is right. But you don't have to report to me every day. You made this plan, just do it. I don't need to know the process. I just want to know the result. This time, You can play as big as you want. Don't have any scruples. Understood, huh? Super Xiaoqian jumped in the snow. This time, I will play them to death. 1 second later, Super Xiaoqian suddenly stopped jumping and said in a nervous and excited tone, Master, I found her. The Holy Thunder Spy satellite just captured her traces. She raised her hand and pointed to the top of the mountain at the bottom of the valley. She's up there. Xiaolei shifted his gaze over and quickly caught sight of a white figure. His eyes automatically pulled the white figure closer and magnified it. Almost in a second, he clearly saw the white figure's facial features. It was a face that was so beautiful that it seemed unreal. There was no expression at all, and her eyes were colder than the snow in the Himalayas. She was Zhu Xianyue, the goddess of suicide from another corn, Isatab. Kirsten didn't lie. Zhu Xianyue was indeed in the Himalayas, and her goal seemed to be to destroy Xanadu. After Zhu Xianyue appeared, the wind and snow inexplicably stopped. The whole valley was eerily silent. The world seemed to have died all of a sudden, and there was no longer anything alive. An unprecedented sense of crisis descended. Charlotte suddenly said, Xiaoqian, new instructions. Return to your world immediately. You can't come out without my permission. I will carry out the instructions, but can I ask? Charlotte had already turned off the projection function. He asked Super Xiaoqian to leave not because he was afraid that Zhu Xianyue would hurt her, but because Super Xiaoqian was not food that Zhu Xianyue could eat. She was just an artificial intelligence program. There was only one reason why he asked Super Xiaoqian to leave, and that was because he didn't want Super Xiaoqian to affect his combat power. In the past, he didn't have the ability to fight Zhu Xianyue, but now that he had fully evolved and hunted twice, and before coming to Xanadu, he even hunted Kirsten. The branding power in his body was much stronger than before. This was why he dared to fight Zhu Xianyue. In the past, he didn't even dare to think about fighting Zhu Xianyue, but now, not only did he dare to think about it, he even dared to do it. Come down. Charlotte's voice penetrated the valley and traveled very far. The white figure on the top of the mountain started to move, and her speed was unimaginably fast. She moved in a straight line, and she jumped down the cliff that was dozens of meters high. She only stepped on the rocks to slow down her fall. It wasn't hard to see that the current Zhu Xianyue was much stronger than before. Charlotte rushed to the armory. After entering the armory, he took an XL 2500 sniper rifle, a Gale assault rifle, and some ammunition and grenades. He was very clear that he had become stronger, but he wasn't at the level where he could fight Zhu Xianyue in hand-to-hand combat. He had to use the firearms that he was best at to make up for the gap between him and Zhu Xianyue. The chances of him losing this battle were much higher than the chances of him winning, but Charlotte still had to do it. Zhu Xianyue had already extended her evil claws to the people around him, and even treated his children as food. He had to make his position clear. If you do that, we will be mortal enemies. When Charlotte came out of the armory, Zhu Xianyue was already halfway up the mountain. Without any hesitation, Charlotte raised the XL 2500, instantly locked onto the moving Zhu Xianyue, and pulled the trigger. Bang! The sound of the gunshot shattered the tranquility of the valley. The bullet that flew out of the XL 2500 sniper rifle's muzzle carried his anger and his will as it flew toward Zhu Xianyue. This shot also represented the complete break between him and Zhu Xianyue. Chapter 1254. The bullet brushed past Zhu Xuanyue's cheek and hit a rock behind her. Sparks flew out from the rock, and the fragments shot out in all directions. A piece of rock hit Zhu Xuanyue's neck, and a wound immediately appeared on her neck. Some blood flowed out of the wound, and on her snow-white, jade-like neck, it looked particularly bright, like a blood-colored flower on a snow-white veil. Zhu Xianyue was stunned for a moment. She didn't seem to expect Charlotte to attack her. Charlotte's behavior surprised her. However, it was only a momentary pause and shock. After that, she suddenly moved and rushed towards the Xanadu at the foot of the mountain at an even faster speed. Bang! A bullet brushed past Zhu Xuanyue's shoulder and disappeared into the snow. Zhu Xianyue didn't stop. Bang! A bullet hit the ground in front of Zhu Xianyue. Zhu Xianyue didn't even look at it and continued to sprint. On the hillside, she leaned forward and sprinted like a sprinter on the track. After a magazine was emptied, except for the wound on Zhu Xuanyue's neck, which was caused by a piece of rock, Charlotte, the world's best sniper, didn't hit his target. If he could kill the goddess of suicide from another world, the enemy of all humans in this world, and solve the crisis that could destroy human civilization, it would be too whimsical. Charlotte didn't expect to kill Zhu Xianyue like this. But even though he knew that the chance of success was 0, he still had to try. Even if there was only a 1% chance of success, he couldn't miss it. Zhu Xianyue had disappeared into the forest at the foot of the mountain, and the sniper rifle could no longer threaten her. Charlotte threw away the sniper rifle and ran toward the guard tower on the side of the gate with only a Gale assault rifle. The watchtower, made of rock and steel, was equipped with a Hellfire 6-barreled heavy machine gun made by the Lima Group. Its firepower was stronger than the U.S.-made Minigang 6-barreled heavy machine gun. On the watchtower, Charlotte followed the Zhejiang Hellfire and aimed the 6-barreled heavy machine gun at the forest behind the base. Then, he pressed down on the firing button. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of the machine gun firing was second only to that of a machine gun. It shook Charlotte's eardrums and made him feel a little pain. The machine gun bullets flew towards the forest at the foot of the mountain. Trees fell one by one, and even rocks were smashed into pieces. With the power of the Hellfire multi-barreled heavy machine gun, even someone as strong as Zhu Xianyue would be torn to shreds if she was hit by the bullets. In Charlotte's field of vision, Zhu Xianyue quickly moved to the right. The complicated terrain of the forest did not affect her speed at all. The bullets that were fired from the Hellfire chased after Zhu Xianyue, and trees fell one after another behind Zhu Xianyue. Zhu Xianyue was in a somewhat sorry state, but it was only a sorry state. This round of attacks did not harm her at all. Several boxes of bullets were quickly used up. If he wanted to continue using the Hellfire multi-barreled heavy machine gun, he would have to return to the armory to get more ammunition. However, Charlotte was clear that Zhu Xianyue would definitely not wait for him to restock his ammunition. She was already very close to him, and with her speed, she would intercept him the moment he entered the armory again. When the Hellfire multi-barreled heavy machine gun's ammunition was exhausted, Zhu Xianyue suddenly changed directions and cut through the forest from the right. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. Without a doubt, Charlotte had already infuriated her by firing at her without saying a word. Without hesitation, Charlotte abandoned the Hellfire multi-barreled heavy machine gun and jumped out of the watchtower. After landing on the ground, his upper body leaned forward. His body was like a motorcycle that had its gas pedal revved up. With a loud bang, he ran at the fastest speed towards the Hades fighter jet parked on the runway. The Hades fighter jet parked on the runway was actually the weapon he really wanted to use to kill Zhu Xianyue. Only a weapon of the Hades fighter jet's level could possibly kill Zhu Xianyue. The sniper rifle and the Hellfire multi-barreled heavy machine gun were just a prelude, used to numb Zhu Xianyue. If killing Zhu Xianyue required a plan, then the only Hades fighter jet in the world was his plan. I must succeed. I must succeed. I only have this one chance. As he ran at full speed, Charlotte kept repeating this sentence in his heart, strengthening his confidence in killing Zhu Xianyue. The Hades fighter jet parked on the runway was getting closer and closer. 50 meters, 30 meters, but just as he was about to get close to the Hades fighter jet, his body suddenly collided with something. That thing was soft, like a woman's chest. But that soft and invisible thing was like an invisible soft wall, knocking him off the ground and sending him flying for several meters before he fell to the ground. Bang, bang, bang. Charlotte's reaction was extremely fast. The moment he fell to the ground, he moved the muzzle of the Gale assault rifle in the direction of the soft wall and pulled the trigger. Several bullets flew out and all hit the body of the Hades fighter jet not far away. The crisp sound of metal colliding rang out, and sparks burst out, but there was no trace left on the body of the Hades fighter jet. But Charlotte was no longer in the mood to pay attention to how good the defense of the Hades fighter jet was. He stared nervously in the direction of the soft wall. He couldn't see what was there, but he could feel that Zhu Xianyue was there. At this moment of life and death, Charlotte suddenly thought of another existence, and that was the prehistoric one. Before death, the one was in the form of pure energy. He was not afraid of any physical attack at all, and no gun in this world could hurt him. Zhu Xianyue used to be in the form of pure energy, but she preferred a beautiful body, so she created a body that belonged to her with peace and Zhu Xuanyue's body in India. With a body, she was no different from a real woman, but that was also her weakness, because killing her body would severely injure her, and then he would get a chance to kill her completely. If he couldn't kill her completely, Charlotte also hoped that she would fall into a dormant state, just like in the Middle Ages, where she would sleep for hundreds of years. But what happened now gave a completely opposite signal, that Zhu Xianyue did not have a body, and she had become a form of pure energy. A feeling of despair suddenly emerged in Charlotte's heart, because he could fight with a body, but he couldn't fight with Zhu Xianyue without a body. A cold wind suddenly blew from the direction of the Hades fighter jet. Rather than saying it blew, it was more like a blast. Charlotte suddenly realized something, and he suddenly wanted to roll to the side. As soon as his body moved away, a muffled sound exploded on the ground, and a pit appeared on the cement floor, and there were even a few cracks. Before Charlotte could stop, the cold wind effectively blasted over like a cannonball. This time, Charlotte couldn't dodge. Bang! Under the huge impact, Charlotte's body flew high and heavily hit the wing of the Hades fighter jet more than 10 meters away. In that instant, his internal organs and bones all over his body felt as if they had been shattered. The moment his body fell on the cement floor, he almost fainted. A familiar voice came. "Didn't you want to fly the fighter jet to kill me? Your fighter jet is right beside you. Why don't you climb up?" Even if this voice turned into ashes, Charlotte would still recognize it, because it was Zhu Xuanyue's voice. She was right beside him, but he couldn't see her. Cough, cough, puffed. When Charlotte got up from the ground, he couldn't help but cough out a mouthful of blood. But the pain of life was far inferior to the helplessness and pain in his heart. The most powerful enemy in his life was right in front of him, but he couldn't even see her. How could he fight such a battle when the opponent was using a cheat? "You want to kill me?" "Of course," Charlotte said. "You want to destroy this world, and you even want to eat my child. Why can't I kill you?" Zhu Xuanyue's voice disappeared, and she didn't continue to attack. Charlotte looked left and right, and then carefully sensed for a while, but he didn't find anything. He moved his gaze to the direction of the forest at the bottom of the valley, and then he saw a white figure walking over. It was none other than Zhu Xianyue. He suddenly came to a realization. No wonder Zhu Xianyue didn't continue to attack him, because she had returned to her body. Could it be like this? Charlotte's heart was filled with surprise and fear. If that's the case, then she's even stronger than before. Now, she can abandon her body at any time and fight in the form of pure energy. My weapons and my fists can't hurt her. She's almost an invincible existence to me. Zhu Xianyue strode over. She was still the same person, beautiful and sexy, but she didn't have the same feeling as before. The little girl who called Charlotte Uncle Xia no longer existed. In the past, Charlotte could still feel peace and Gu Qian's existence from her, but now even that feeling was gone. The Zhu Xianyue who appeared this time was emitting a cold and ruthless aura. She was extremely powerful. "Do you know where my first stop in the Western Province was?" Zhu Xuanyue's voice was heard. Charlotte didn't say anything and just looked at her. Zhu Xianyue said, "I went to the snowy mountain where I saved you, Tavong, Snowy Mountain." Charlotte's heart skipped a beat, and the scene at that time appeared again. At that time, if it weren't for Zhu Xianyue, he and Tang Yin would probably have died on that snowy mountain. Of course, it was just a rough guess. Now that he recalled the past, Weren't those extremely dangerous experiences tempering him as a chess piece? If he was destined to unlock the secrets of the Box of Three Realms and the Crystal Skull, the prehistoric one might be right beside him, but he couldn't see it at all. Why did you go there? A cold smile appeared on Charlotte's lips. You mentioned Tavong Snowy Mountain at this time. Do you want me to be grateful to you? Don't forget, without me, you wouldn't have been able to wake up. It was me who brought you to this world. Zhu Xuanyue's face was expressionless. So, you're also an accomplice in destroying this world. I resurrected you, and you saved me. We don't owe each other anything. Don't talk to me about being an accomplice. I'm not the same as you. You must have some unspeakable secret for going to Tavong Snowy Mountain, right? There's no unspeakable secret. I only went to Tavong Snowy Mountain to fulfill the last wish of the clothes I'm wearing. Gu Qian, I believe you still remember this woman. Do you know what a last wish was? A woman's face appeared in Charlotte's mind. It was Gu Qian's face. Gu Qian's last wish? This sentence gave off a sinister feeling. A strained smile appeared on Zhu Xuanyue's face. Her last wish was to go to that snowy mountain again and lie down at the place where you carried her. Charlotte was stunned on the spot. She really loved you, down to the bone. You killed her with your own hands, but she still wanted to lie down at the place where you killed her. I fulfilled her wish, which was equivalent to clearing the remnant thoughts in this body. You can't feel her anymore, right? Zhu Xuanyue stared straight at Charlotte. Her gaze seemed to pierce through Charlotte's body and soul. Chapter 1255. Remnant thoughts, fragments of memories, could also be said to be fragments of the soul. Zhu Xuanyue used this method to clean up the impurities left in her body, thus becoming stronger. From Zhu Xuanyue's body, Charlotte not only could not feel the existence of Gu Qian, but he also could not feel the existence of tranquility. That kind and gentle woman appeared in his mind. She was gentle and quiet, smiling at him. Her smile was like warm sunlight, dispelling the coldness in his heart, but it also brought a stabbing pain in his heart. Are you thinking of another woman, Tranquility? Zhu Xuanyue's lips curled into a cold smile. Do you want to know what her last wish was? Charlotte did not say anything. Zhu Xuanyue said, her last wish was to sleep in your arms. The first thing I knew was actually Tranquility's remnant thought, because I slept with you. Do you still remember? Uncle Xia. Now hearing Zhu Xuanyue call him Uncle Xia, Charlotte had a disgusted feeling. After cleaning up the remnant thoughts of your two women, I'm stronger than before. I can take off my current body like clothes and do some things in my original form. So, even if I did not stop you just now and let you climb into your fighter jet and blow me to pieces, I would be fine. Zhu Xuanyue said with incomparable confidence. You don't even need clothes. Why did you kill Tranquility? Charlotte's heart was filled with anger. Is it wrong for women to like clothes? What you see now is only flesh and blood clothes. In the future, you will see steel clothes. Zhu Xuanyue said, You mean you're kind? Zhu Xuanyue nodded. Charlotte's heart was extremely heavy. He did not want to imagine the scene of Zhu Xuanyue's kind in steel armor invading this world. But some scenes from Independence Day still appeared in his mind. Huge spaceships, overwhelming technology, cities turned into ruins, fertile fields turned into scorched earth. Humans at the top of the food chain in this world became food, hunted and eaten by Zhu Xuanyue and her kind. Just give up. You can't change anything. Zhu Xuanyue's voice could be heard. You don't have to be sad. This is the law of evolution in the universe. It was only right and proper for the strong to eat the weak. Aren't you guys doing the same? How many species on Earth have disappeared because of your desires? Charlotte cleared all the images in his mind, including Serenity and Gu Qian's appearances. At the same time, he awakened the branding power in his body. The energy field of the branding power was released from his body, like an invisible mist wrapping around him. You killed Kirsten? Zhu Xuanyue's eyes suddenly turned cold. Charlotte was taken aback. How did you know that? Your energy field contains his aura, and it hasn't been completely digested. Not only did you kill him, but you also ate him. AE Energy Field. This was the first time Charlotte heard of such a name. He named that energy the branding power. Regardless of whether it was the AE energy field or the branding power, its essence had not changed. They were all the evolution power of this universe, and it could also be said to be the power of this universe's laws. Different civilizations would definitely have different names for it. You're stronger than before. It seems like that guy really has high hopes for you. You killed Kirsten, and he was my assistant. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you? Or kill your woman and children? Zhu Xuanyue's voice turned cold. Her eyes were like knives, and she could attack at any time. Kirsten told me that you've already treated my children as the best food in this world. You want to eat them. I'm their father, and I'll do my best to protect them. If you want to eat them, you'll have to kill me first. Charlotte put his hand down. He could grab the handle of the Gale assault rifle on his shoulder or the Viper pistol on his waist at any time. Zhu Xianyue did not attack Charlotte immediately. Did he tell you that? Charlotte said. Not only that, he also told me about your plan. He brought an energy bar from Korea this time, right? What role do those energy bars play in your plan? Zhu Xianyue did not answer Charlotte's question. She said calmly, you humans really have the gene of betrayal in you. No matter how I purify it, it can't be purified. Since he can betray me, then it's not a pity for him to die. Do you want to kill me, or do you want me to continue being your chess piece? You need to make a decision. I'm considering whether to kill you or let you live. You're getting stronger and stronger, and you'll become a threat to me. If I eat you, I'll become even stronger. But letting you live seems to be a good choice. It's really hard for me. Zhu Xianyue looked at Charlotte. You want me to make such a decision, yet you don't seem afraid at all. What are you relying on? Are you really not afraid that after angering me, I'll go to Kyoto and eat your woman and child? Charlotte sneered. I have a deal with the prehistoric one, Kasha Ruiz, the Apostle of Darkness. He will protect my woman and child. If you go, he will stop you. Actually, you know he's in Kyoto, right? That's why you chose this place. During this period of time, you don't want to fight Kasha Ruiz, right? Zhu Xuanyue's eyes flickered slightly. This subtle change fell into Charlotte's eyes, and he made his judgment. He guessed Zhu Xuanyue's thoughts. During this period of time, Zhu Xianyue didn't want to fight Kasha Ruiz because it might affect her plan to turn this world into a hunting ground. He could guess Zhu Xuanyue's thoughts, but he couldn't guess Kasha Ruiz's thoughts. Kasha Ruiz should stop Zhu Xianyue, because when Zhu Xuanyue's kind came, he would become the target of Zhu Xianyue and her kind. But so far, he didn't show any signs of doing so. He couldn't figure this out. I'm not surprised that you're using Kasha Ruiz as your support. Yes, you guessed it right. I know he's in Kyoto, and I don't want to fight him, at least not now. But he has already made you an unstable factor. You're getting stronger and stronger, and this is not what I want to see. Zhu Xianyue said, didn't you advise me to eat in the beginning? I did advise you to eat because you're too weak and you can't bear what you have to do. Now you've exceeded my limit, so I came here. I know that once you receive a distress signal, you will come. I can avoid fighting with Kasha Ruiz and thus achieve my goal. Zhu Xianyue said, you want to kill me? No. I want to eat a part of you and let you return to my limit. Only in this way will you be a safe chess piece. Zhu Xianyue said, destroying Shangri-La seemed to be just a cover because Shangri-La didn't threaten her plan at all. She didn't need to come to this desolate place. This was her real purpose, to eat a part of him and let him return to her designated ability value. Charlotte wasn't surprised that she did this, because a chess piece that was strong enough to threaten her and her plan was obviously dangerous. She was different from Kasha Ruiz. Her ultimate plan was to turn this world into a hunting ground, rebuild their civilization, and all those who stood in the way of her plan would be eradicated. But Kasha Ruiz was different. He gave people the feeling that he was a hermit who had seen through everything. The fate of this world had nothing to do with him. He only cared about his own matters, which was to unlock the secrets of the World Box and the Crystal Skull. For this purpose, Kasha Ruiz was willing to protect his wife and children, but he wasn't willing to protect those innocent people. I'm a chess piece between you and Kasha Ruiz. Kasha Ruiz's purpose is the secrets of the world box and the crystal skull. Is your purpose the same? Why me? Besides this purpose, what else do you and Kasha Ruiz want from me? He didn't know why. With this known purpose, Charlotte still felt that Zhu Xianyue and Kasha Ruiz had a hidden purpose, but he couldn't guess what it was. He was also very clear that Zhu Xianyue and Kasha Ruiz had been lying to him from the beginning. How could they tell him the truth in the end? You'll understand in the end. Zhu Xianyue didn't answer any of Charlotte's questions. But just as her voice fell, Charlotte suddenly grabbed the handle of the Gale assault rifle, raised the muzzle, and instantly locked onto Zhu Xianyue. Zhu Xianyue's feet, almost at the same time, her body suddenly shot to the left like a cannonball. Bang, bang, bang. A few bullets flew past the position where Zhu Xianyue was just standing, but all of them missed. Charlotte adjusted the direction of the muzzle and used the fastest speed to capture Zhu Xianyue's movement trajectory. However, Zhu Xianyue suddenly fell to the ground. The enemy who was being chased fell to the ground. This was undoubtedly a good thing for the person who was chasing with a gun. However, Xiaolei secretly cursed in his heart. Suddenly, a strong wind blew. Zhu Xianyue had already taken off her clothes and was attacking in her pure energy form that was not afraid of any physical attacks. If it was against an ordinary target, Zhu Xianyue did not need to take off her clothes. She could kill the target with just a thought, and even eat the target. But Charlotte was different. She could not steal the information in Charlotte's brain, nor could she control Charlotte or kill Charlotte. Moreover, Charlotte was the best sharpshooter in the world. So in order to defeat Charlotte, she had to take off her clothes. To be able to force Zhu Xianyue to take off her clothes, this was actually a reflection of Charlotte's progress and strength. Without waiting for Zhu Xianyue's real body to approach, Charlotte's feet also vigorously kicked in the direction behind him. His body also flew backwards with a whoosh. Although it was not as terrifying as Zhu Xianyue's cannonball-like speed, it was still as fast as an arrow shot out. Boom! A pit appeared on the ground where he had just stopped, and there were also traces of cracks. If Charlotte did not dodge, this kick would have been enough to seriously injure Charlotte and make him fall to the ground. In the midst of his shock, Charlotte's energy field suddenly captured something, and an image instantly appeared in his brain. It was a pure, gas-like thing. It was transparent and could not be seen. The reason why this image appeared in his brain was because of the energy field. The energy field of his branding power was like his third eye. At this critical moment, it replaced his eyes and became an eye that could see incorporeal objects. Without a doubt, that transparent energy substance was Zhu Xianyue's real body. Bang, bang, bang. Several bullets flew out, and at the same time as Charlotte flew backwards, they instantly penetrated Zhu Xianyue's real body. Without any pause, those bullets penetrated Zhu Xianyue's real body. In the image that appeared in Charlotte's brain, there were a few holes in Zhu Xianyue's real body, but in the blink of an eye, she had not suffered any damage at all. Chapter 1256. From being unable to see to being able to discover Zhu Xianyue's real body through the energy field of the branding power. This was a huge improvement for Charlotte, and it also gave him some confidence. After all, an enemy that he couldn't see was almost impossible for him to fight. Now that he could see, he could at least give it a try. In addition, he would have to face another enemy sooner or later, which was the prehistoric one. And the prehistoric one had always been in the form of pure energy from the first time he appeared until now. The experience he gained from fighting Zhu Xianyue now could be applied to fighting the prehistoric one in the future. Charlotte continued to retreat. He had to distance himself from Zhu Xianyue because Zhu Xianyue's speed was too fast. He felt that Zhu Xianyue's speed was not comparable to a bullet, but it was definitely comparable to a level 7 strong wind speed. You can see me? Zhu Xianyue did not chase after him, and her voice was filled with surprise. Charlotte did not say anything and continued to retreat. His left hand quickly finished reloading, and after that, he grabbed a grenade in his hand. Bullets could not hurt Zhu Xianyue, so he wondered if a grenade with a huge explosive power would be able to hurt her. He really wanted to try. Zhu Xianyue moved towards Charlotte, but her speed was very slow. Her voice came from the void again. "You're improving very quickly, and I want to eat you more and more. Not a part, but all of it." Screech. With a soft sound, Charlotte pulled off the safety of the grenade, but did not throw it out. Instead, he held it in his hand. Zhu Xianyue continued to move towards Charlotte. She did not seem to care about the grenade in Charlotte's hand. "What have you been through all this time? Someone must have told you some secret. I don't believe it's Casher Ruiz because you're also his chess piece. He won't be stupid enough to let you be too strong for him to control. Who is he?" "Zhu Xianyue doesn't know about my father's existence?" Charlotte was inexplicably shocked because Zhu Xuanyue's words made him think more. Before this, he thought that his father was the only person or piece of clothing from the prehistoric era. His real father, Xia Changhe, had long passed away. But now, it seemed that his conjecture back then wasn't correct. The hypothesis that Pops was the only subordinate or clothes in the prehistoric era still needed evidence to prove it. What was certain was that Pops was hiding a huge secret. You didn't want to eat it first. Did that person force you to eat? Zhu Xuanyue's voice was full of suspicion. Charlotte sneered. "Casher Ruiz set a deadline for me. You want to eat my children and women, and even destroy this world. I have to protect my wife and child. I have to survive. How can I not become stronger? No matter what I did, you forced me to do it." He didn't mention a single word about his father, Xia Changhe. Even if you don't say it, it's useless. "I will find that person and kill him," Zhu Xianyue said. As soon as her voice fell, a strong wind blew. Zhu Xianyue took advantage of the moment when she was talking to rush in front of Charlotte and threw a punch at Charlotte's chest. It was too late for Charlotte to dodge. In a moment of desperation, he hurriedly raised the Gale assault rifle in his hand and used both hands to block in front of his chest. Bang! A muffled sound. The alloy Gale assault rifle's body was bent in the middle. Under the huge impact, Charlotte's body flew upside down. He flew out of the track like a cannonball and landed heavily on a piece of barren land. At that moment, the grenade that was dropped on the ground exploded with a loud bang. The location of the explosion happened to be the place where Zhu Xianyue sent him flying. Fire, smoke, and debris shot out in all directions in a hemispherical formation from where he had stood just now. Although he couldn't see it with his naked eyes, an image appeared in his mind. It was Zhu Xuanyue's body being torn apart by the grenade shockwave. Her fragments were flying in all directions. Just like that, he dealt with a strong enemy like Zhu Xianyue. Charlotte didn't dare to believe it. A second later, the fragments of Zhu Xuanyue's body that were still flying in the air suddenly flew back and reformed. The scene was like countless strong springs that were stretched taut and then suddenly retracted, returning to their original state in an instant. In the next second, Zhu Xuanyue's body broke through the distance of more than 10 meters and pressed down on Charlotte, who didn't even have time to get up from the ground. Her speed was something that humans couldn't compete with. If Charlotte had also abandoned the pure energy form of his body, he could still fight with Zhu Xianyue. However, his body was his burden. He couldn't win against Zhu Xianyue, who was immune to physical attacks. With Zhu Xianyue on top of him, he felt like he had suddenly fallen into an ice cellar that was 100 degrees below zero. Although his body could withstand the cold that far exceeded the limits of humans, the sudden extreme cold still numbed his limbs and slowed his thinking. Suddenly, he felt something flowing out of his body and entering Zhu Xuanyue's body. He understood that Zhu Xianyue was treating him as food. His life force and the branding power in his body were flowing out. His heartbeat slowed down and his brain was dizzy. This feeling was the same as when he ate Kirsten. It was just that he was far stronger than Kirsten, so the process was slower. It was also because it was slow that he could clearly feel every detail of the process. The feeling of being eaten bit by bit was extremely terrifying. Fear took over his body. "I thought you wouldn't be afraid." This is the result of going against me. Zhu Xuanyue's voice was cold and emotionless. It was arrogant and disdainful. The fear of death swept over him like a tidal wave. Charlotte's heart was filled with sorrow. He was the richest man in this world. No one in the entire human race could go against him. He could attack the capital market of the United States at will. He could also join the military exercises of the United States and its allies at will. He didn't have to worry about any terrible consequences. However, who was almost invincible in this world, was so weak in front of an enemy from another world. He couldn't even withstand a single blow. To him, this was a vicious irony. "Beg me, I will spare your life," Zhu Xianyue said. Her face appeared in the void. The face that was formed from energy was not the face of her physical body. Instead, it was a face that was smooth and clean like a peeled egg. Was this her original appearance? She wasn't beautiful at all. One could even say that she was ugly. Charlotte didn't beg for mercy. He used all his strength and kneed Zhu Xianyue, who was on top of him. His knee sank into Zhu Xuanyue's body. However, it didn't send Zhu Xianyue flying. On the contrary, his knee was frozen in ice. He couldn't lower it. "You're really stubborn. I'm worried that I won't be able to control a chess piece like you. I really want to kill you now. What should I do?" Zhu Xuanyue's voice carried a hint of ridicule. However, it wasn't hard to tell from her cold voice that she was really considering this problem. His fate wasn't in his control. It was only a matter of time before others decided to kill him. This kind of feeling was worse than death for Charlotte. But there was nothing he could do. He began to regret that he was busy researching and building the Hades fighter and Kunpeng bomber. He didn't go to the place where the Hellhound virus broke out to eat and quickly improve his strength. Now, it seemed that if he died, no one in this world could stop Zhu Xianyue and her plan to turn this world into a hunting ground. What was the point of researching the fighter and bomber? For some reason, Xia Changhe's face appeared in Charlotte's mind again. His father, Xia Changhe, had done a lot of things to hurt him recently. But now that he thought about it, what his father, Xia Changhe, did was right. If it weren't for the 2 times his father, Xia Changhe, forced him, he wouldn't have lasted more than 2 seconds in front of Zhu Xianyue in her pure energy form. Kasha Ruiz used so much time to unravel those secrets. How can I expect you to? Perhaps I was moved by an unrealistic idea of Kasha Ruiz, so I'll let you live until now and let you threaten my plan. Now, I have made a decision. Accept your fate. Zhu Xuanyue's voice showed that she had made a decision. Faces flashed in Charlotte's mind again. Long Bing's, Liang Xiao's, Tang Yuyin's, Fan Fan's, Jiang Rui's, Shinta Tianin's, and his children, Liang Jiayu, Xia Long, Xia Fan, Xia Jianghe, Xia Yang, Xia Yu, and Xia Tavong, and then Xia Shui's face. These faces were entangled together. It was a kind of reluctance and connection. His heart was filled with a sad sigh. "I'm sorry, I love you. I want to be with you, but I can't do it." Zhu Xianyue was like a spider entangled Charlotte, making him unable to move. Her body was like a black hole, constantly sucking and devouring Charlotte's vitality and the imprint power in his brain. Charlotte's vision gradually blurred. At this time, not to mention X-ray scanning, he couldn't even see things a few meters away. There was a lingering question in his heart. Am I going to die? What does death feel like? Ka ka ka. A strange sound came, breaking the silence of the night. The lights were lit up, and the dazzling light dispelled the darkness inside the base. A searchlight suddenly moved over and pointed at the place where Charlotte and Zhu Xianyue were. The light was more dazzling than the sun, making people unable to look directly at it. It was also at this moment that the shackles on his body suddenly disappeared. When his body regained its freedom, Charlotte's legs kicked the ground, and his body slid back 2 meters. Then he pushed his palms on the ground, and his whole body stood upright. His gaze quickly swept across the surroundings, and then stopped next to the Hades fighter jet. Under the snow-white light, a man with a good figure was grabbing Zhu Xuanyue's body. He stood behind Zhu Xuanyue's body, and his right arm wrapped around Zhu Xuanyue's shoulder, and in his right hand was a shining military knife. In his left hand was a box, which was placed on the side of his thigh. Charlotte recognized this man at a glance. It was his father, Xia Chang'e. He also recognized the metal box in Xia Chang'e's hand at a glance. It was the box that contained the crystal skull and the box of 3 realms. He placed the metal box in the underground laboratory of the Rema Group's headquarters in the capital. There was an elite special forces unit guarding the place, but with Xia Chang'e's strength, it would be difficult for him to steal the box. "You're that person?" Zhu Xuanyue's voice appeared between Charlotte and Xia Chang'e, and her position was also between Charlotte and Xia Chang'e. Zhu Xuanyue really didn't know about Xia Chang'e's existence, or rather, Zhu Xuanyue didn't know about Xia Chang'e's secret. All this time, who could figure out Xia Chang'e's secret? A frightening thought appeared in Charlotte's heart. Could it be that Dad is the third pole other than Zhu Xuanyue and the prehistoric one? You are that person. Zhu Xuanyue seemed to have used her energy field to complete the investigation, and her voice was filled with killing intent. "But you came at the right time. I'll kill both of you together. That way no one can interfere with my plan." As soon as she finished speaking, Xia Chang'e suddenly pulled out his right hand, and the sharp dagger immediately cut Zhu Xuanyue's neck. Blood spurted out from the suddenly cut throat a few meters away. Chapter 12:57. Xia Chang'e came. Without saying a word, he used his knife to cut Zhu Xuanyue's throat. Charlotte did not expect this. He thought his father, Xia Chang'e, would use Zhu Xuanyue's body as a hostage to force her to compromise. He did not expect his father, Xia Chang'e, to open a wound on Zhu Xuanyue's neck. The blood was still spurting, but the distance it could travel was shortened. This knife meant that Peaceful and Gu Qian had left this world and wouldn't be coming back. But this was good. This ending was a relief for them. Xia Chang'e let go, and Zhu Xuanyue's body fell forward. She fell to the ground. "No!" Zhu Xuanyue screamed. She suddenly jumped towards Xia Chang'e. "Be careful!" Charlotte screamed. At this moment, he forgot what Xia Chang'e had done to him. In his heart, there was only the worry of a son for his father. Xia Chang'e did not dodge at all. He threw out the metal box in his left hand. The metal box slid down to Xia Lei's feet. At that moment, his body flew up from the ground and shot backward like a cannonball. Blood came out his mouth and fell to the ground. His father, Xia Chang'e, was no match for Zhu Xuanyue. The metal box hit the tip of Xia Lei's foot and stopped. Why did his father, Xia Chang'e, bring the box with the crystal skull and the box of the world there? Xia Chang'e did not have time to speak. Before he fell from the sky, his body was hit by Zhu Xuanyue again. He flew farther away. Zhu Xuanyue attacked angrily. She looked like she was going to blow him up in the air. But even if Xia Chang'e did not say anything, Charlotte knew why Xia Chang'e had brought the box with the crystal skull and the box there. Zhu Xuanyue once said that the box of the world was like a prison. A part of her had been locked inside for a long time. She was afraid of that feeling. The crystal skull could interfere with a person's brain waves. It could even control a person's brain. It had a special ability to interfere with pure energy forms. His father, Xia Chang'e, cut the neck of Zhu Xuanyue's body. That was a very clear signal. Without hesitation, Charlotte opened the metal box and took out the crystal skull and the box of the world. Then, he ran toward his father, Xia Chang'e. Bang! Xia Chang'e's body was hit by Zhu Xuanyue for the third time. He was seriously injured. Blood spurted from his mouth and soaked his clothes. But he didn't let out any painful wails. His eyes were still firm, without the slightest bit of fear. There was even a hint of schadenfreude in his eyes, as if his plot had succeeded. Dying, Zhu Xuanyue leaped up and rushed at Xia Chang'e's head, who was falling to the ground from a height of more than 10 meters. Her pure energy form was no longer in the shape of a human body. Instead, it was in the shape of a knight's lance. If she stabbed Xia Chang'e's head would definitely explode like a watermelon falling from the sky. At this time, there was still some distance between Charlotte and Xia Chang'e. Unless he had the speed of a bullet, he would not be able to save his father. "No!" Charlotte roared. Zhu Xuanyue's lance body continued to stab at Xia Chang'e. Bang! A muffled sound. Zhu Xuanyue's spear-shaped body suddenly flew upwards, and the straight pole of the reeds suddenly bent. Xiaolei immediately stopped in his tracks. At that moment, an image appeared in his mind. An object suddenly appeared in his father's mind and blocked him and Zhu Xuanyue's lance, dispelling Zhu Xuanyue's attack. He suddenly understood why his father wasn't afraid at all. It was because he could take off his clothes just like Zhu Xianyue did. Who is he? Charlotte's mind was in chaos. Boom! Xiao Chang'e's body fell to the ground. Dust flew everywhere. He spat out a mouthful of blood and couldn't get up in time. So you still can't. Zhu Xuanyue's voice resounded in the air. She once again condensed the energy to form her body and stabbed at Xiao Chang'e in the form of a lance. Whoosh! A figure rushed over from the side, carrying the crystal skull and the world box, and crashed into Zhu Xuanyue's knight spear with a loud boom. There was no sound of impact. Charlotte felt like he had crashed into a ball of cotton or a rubber mattress. A strange rebounding force was transmitted back, and his body flew back with a whoosh. But a miracle happened. The almost invincible Zhu Xianyue was sent flying by his collision, with the box of the world in one hand and the crystal skull in the other. Charlotte's branding power seemed to have fused with the crystal skull, expanding and becoming stronger. His eyes finally caught sight of a faint and indistinct figure. It was like a cloud of water vapor under the scorching sun. It was transparent, but there was a bit of light refraction. It was also through the slight refraction of light that he saw what she looked like. She was almost 2 meters tall, a lot taller than him. Her body had obvious female characteristics. She had a high chest and a flat lower abdomen. The refraction of light was also a bit messy. That was also a woman's characteristic. Her buttocks looked plump and sexy. However, her facial features were very vague, and she looked like a shelled egg without hair. These characteristics were actually not much different from what his brain had simulated based on the information captured by the branding power. But the image simulated by the brain was obviously not as shocking as seeing it with his eyes. This was also the first time Charlotte saw Zhu Xuanyue's real appearance. No, she was not Zhu Xianyue. That was just one of her many fake identities. Her name should be Isatab, the goddess of suicide from another world. Although shocked, Charlotte did not panic. He stood in front of Xiao Chang'e, blocking Isatab's attack route to Xiao Chang'e. Isatab did not attack. She looked at the box of the world and the crystal skull in Charlotte's hands cautiously. Her eyes were very complicated. It was impossible to guess what she was thinking at that moment. Xiao Chang'e climbed up from the ground. There was still blood at the corner of his mouth. But from his expression, it looked like it was someone else's blood. It had nothing to do with him. You are very afraid of it, right? Charlotte said. He slowly walked toward Isatab. Charlotte approached, while Isatab retreated. Whether she was afraid of the box of the world or the crystal skull, her body language was actually a kind of answer. Is it the box of the world that you are afraid of? Or the crystal skull? Why are you afraid of them? Xiaolei continued to get closer to Isatab as he probed. As Charlotte approached, Isatab became more and more nervous. She retreated faster and faster. In her eyes, Charlotte did not see fear but terror. Xiaolei stopped in his tracks. He didn't dare to force his way forward because he was worried that Isatab would suddenly launch a sneak attack on his father. If he was too far away from his father, Xiao Chang'e, with Isatab's speed, she could easily go around him and attack Xiao Chang'e. Isatab retreated a few more meters before stopping. She finally said, I changed my mind. What do you want to say? Charlotte could not guess what she was thinking. Isatab said, I never believed what Kasha Rui said about you, but now I do. I won't kill you this time. Wait for your fate. What else did you plan with him? Xiaolei suddenly sped up and charged toward Isatab. Isatab turned and retreated. She was much faster than Charlotte. By the time Charlotte caught up to where she had been standing, she was already very far away. If you want your wife and child to be safe, you better behave for now. Otherwise, I will kill your wife and child. Kasha Ruiz cannot stop me. Isatab's voice came from the void, echoing in the valley. It was quiet. Only Isatab's voice could be heard, but she could not be seen. It was an eerie feeling that made one's hair stand on end. Just then, an illusion appeared in front of Charlotte. He saw Xia Changhe holding a child and walking towards him. He didn't know when the sky had turned bright. The golden sunlight sprinkled on the ground, and there were colorful flowers everywhere, dotting the grassland like stars. The child was hopping and hopping. When he got closer, he realized that it was him when he was young. "Daddy, I want to eat popsicles," little Charlotte said. A loving smile appeared on Xia Changhe's face. "Okay, Daddy will buy one for you and one for Lil Shui. Bring it back for him, but don't eat it." "I won't. I won't eat my sister's popsicles." Little Charlotte was very happy. "I want a bean paste flavor. My sister wants an orange flavor." Okay. Yours is bean paste flavor and Lil Shui's orange flavor. Daddy will buy it for you immediately." Xia Changhe's face was full of smiles. Who would sell popsicles on the grass? Charlotte shook his head hard, and the illusion in front of him disappeared. The sky was still dark, but the interior of Shangri-La was brightly lit. The searchlight shone in this direction, and it was as bright as day. He suddenly turned his head, but there was no sign of Xia Changhe. There was a corpse lying on the ground behind him. It was the body of Isitabu. There was the existence of tranquility, and there was the existence of Gu Qian. But now they were like discarded clothes that had been worn out. They were dirty and worthless. "Are you going to leave just like that?" Charlotte roared. His voice echoed in the valley, and it could be heard from far away. Xia Changhe did not respond. "Come back," Charlotte roared again. He had too many questions to ask Xia Changhe, but he always played this trick, coming and going without a trace, and always maintaining a high level of mystery. Xia Changhe still did not respond, and Charlotte could not see his figure. "Who are you? Who are you?" The echo echoed in the valley, but other than the echo, there was no response from Xia Changhe. Charlotte gave up. He knew that even if he shouted himself hoarse, Xia Changhe would not respond. Charlotte looked at the crystal skull in his hand and the box of the world. He did not move for a long time. It was not until a few minutes later that he walked over to Isitabu's body. To Isitabu, the body was just a torn piece of clothing, but to him, it was the two women who loved him deeply. He owed them, and he had to give them a proper burial. Chapter 1258. A ray of light pierced through the eastern sky, and the darkness retreated like the tide. A snowflake was blown down from the treetops by the wind and landed on the woman's face, but it didn't melt. Her body was already frozen, and there was no warmth at all. Crack! Charlotte stabbed a shovel into the ground. There was a 1-meter deep pit in front of him. That was the grave he used to bury her. He didn't know what to call her. She was the combination of peaceful and Gu Qian, but she looked like Isatab. She lay quietly on the cold, muddy ground. Her neck that had been cut open was a shocking sight to behold. If she was still conscious, she must be in pain, right? Charlotte couldn't help but think about that, and then he felt that it was for the best. Because no matter if it was peaceful or Gu Qian, they had already left this world. Being buried was the place they deserved. Peaceful Gu Qian. Charlotte's voice was filled with sorrow. "I know you treated me well, but I never gave you anything. I owe you a lot, and I can't repay you in this life. If there is a next life, I will definitely repay you. I hope you're all well in heaven." She lay quietly on the ground and didn't respond at all. She couldn't hear Charlotte's voice, and she couldn't communicate with Charlotte. Eternal separation from heaven was the most painful thing in the world. Charlotte picked her up and carefully placed her in the grave that he had dug himself. He looked at her, hesitated, then leaned over and kissed her on the lips. Her cherry lips were cold, and there were signs of shrinking, so much so that she couldn't hide her teeth. Such lips weren't beautiful at all, and they even made people feel disgusted, but he didn't care at all. When he kissed her lips, he couldn't help but think of Peaceful and Gu Qian. They smiled at him, held hands, and slowly walked away. This was the kiss of farewell. "Goodbye, Peaceful. Goodbye, Gu Qian. If I survive, I will visit you guys every Qingming festival and talk to you guys. The corners of Charlotte's eyes were moist. When he climbed to the ground, he could no longer control his emotions, and tears flowed down his cheeks. Charlotte stared at her, who was lying in the grave, in a daze for a while. Then he took off his clothes and pants, even his underwear box, shoes and socks, and put them into the grave. Peaceful and Gu Qin loved him deeply. Peaceful's last wish was to sleep with him. Gu Qin's last wish was to lie for a while where he had killed her. They loved him so much that he kept them company by leaving his clothes and shoes and stockings beside them. After putting the clothes, shoes, and socks into the grave, Charlotte picked up the shovel and shoveled the soil. Her beautiful face gradually disappeared into the mud. A new grave was born. Its location was on a hill behind Shangri-La. Every day when the sun rose, and Jing and Gu Qin could see the first ray of light. In summer and spring, they could also see small flowers blooming all over the mountains. Charlotte felt that they would definitely like this place. "I'm leaving. Rest in peace." Charlotte bowed to a wooden tombstone. The tombstone had the words, "Peaceful and Gu Qin's grave." The rising sun shone on Xiaolei's body. He didn't have a single piece of cloth on him, and all of his skin was exposed to the sunlight. Under the golden sunlight, his skin actually looked a little translucent, as if it was carved out of ice and snow and would melt under the sunlight. After noticing this, Charlotte could not help but stop. He looked at his body, and his heart was filled with shock. Am I going to lose my body and become a pure energy body like Isatab and the prehistoric one? Thinking about this, he could not help but smile bitterly. So what? If I become a pure energy body to kill Isatab and the prehistoric one, I don't mind. After the battle with Isatab, Charlotte's views and thoughts had changed. He did not reject the idea of losing his body through evolution, and he did not care about eating. Facing the golden sunlight, Charlotte sat on a rock. He activated the branding power in his brain and examined the inside of his body. The examination was not only because his skin had become crystal clear, but also because he had been eaten by Isatab in the previous battle. At that time, he clearly felt the loss of his life force and the branding power stored in his brain, which was what Isatab called energy. The branding power was awakened, and an energy field was released from his body, wrapping around him like a cold stream of water. All the information inside his body was transmitted to his brain when the branding power finished wrapping his body, and the relevant images immediately appeared in his brain. His heart, his kidneys, his empty stomach, and his blood vessels and nerves, the results of the examination came out quickly. Because of the loss of life force, his organs, blood vessels, muscles, nerves, and even bones were damaged to a certain extent, but it was not serious. After all, the process of Isatab eating him was very short. Now, the branding power was repairing the damaged organs and tissues. The speed at which the branding power repaired the damaged organs and tissues was very fast. In Charlotte's brain, the capillaries in the damaged tissues were filling up, and the blood was flowing again. With his current body, no matter what illness it was, he did not need a doctor. This seemed to be the inevitable trend of human evolution. If humans could survive this, there would still be a future. The damaged organs and tissues were repaired, but the portion of the branding power that had been lost could not be recovered. Until today, Xiaolei had a good understanding of this mysterious energy. His understanding of it was that the power of the brand was a kind of energy. It would subtly grow a little bit, but the speed of this growth was extremely slow. In a few years, or even 10 years, it could only grow a little bit. The amount was almost negligible. However, through eating, it could grow quickly and become very powerful. Charlotte was not surprised at all that it had such an attribute. If it could be trained like muscles and become stronger, then Isatab and her kind would not have destroyed one civilization after another by eating. Because this energy could not be increased through training or cultivation, invasion and hunting became the best choice. Finally, it was the condition of the brain. His brain had also suffered some slight damage. Some of the cells had lost their life, and there were signs of decay. The branding power also repaired his damaged brain tissue, but this part of the recovery was very slow. The branding power crushed the damaged and rotten brain cells, and then rolled them into the blood vessels and into the blood circulation system. Finally, the damaged and rotten cell fragments were expelled from the kidneys in the form of urine. After finishing the internal inspection and command of the branding power, Charlotte's brain really did release a signal that his urine was full. He stood up and sprayed a column of water at the rising sun. The column of water flew straight forward for a few meters before bending down and falling to the ground, splashing water everywhere. When the sun shone on his drainer, he realized that his drainer had also become crystal clear. It gave him the feeling that it was carved out of white jade. If there was a beauty contest in this world, he would definitely live to be the world champion. After peeing, Charlotte also cleared away the messy thoughts in his head. He then opened the cylindrical metal box and took out the crystal skull and the box of the world. Under the sunlight, the box of the world with its missing corner gave off an ancient and mysterious feeling. Until now, Xiaolei still didn't know where it came from, nor did he know what it was made of or who created it. His gaze moved to the crystal skull. In the golden morning sun, the crystal skull became even more crystal clear. The light that it refracted was not golden, but soft and pure white. It was so spotless and clean to the extreme. He could not see the energy contained in it, but he could feel its existence, but he knew nothing about it. Wait a minute. Xiaolei's gaze suddenly shifted to the space between his legs. After looking at it for a while, he shifted his gaze back to the crystal skull. His jaw dropped, and he was stunned for a long time before he said, "Oh my God, this color is so similar. Will my bird evolve into a crystal skull?" If that's the case, he could not imagine it anymore, but he was sure that if that was the case, Tang Yuyin, Long Bing, Shina Tianin, Liang Xiao, Jiang Rui, and Fan Fan would definitely not sleep in the same bed with him. After a few minutes, Charlotte clearly felt that his brain was affected. He then put the crystal skull and the box of the world into a cylindrical metal box that could isolate energy radiation. After that, the influence that had just appeared disappeared. He sat quietly for a while, then got up and walked down the hill. If he could not think of an answer, thinking for a long time would just be a waste of time. After returning to the Shangri-La base, Charlotte found a set of clothes and put them on. After tidying up, he took out his satellite phone and made a call. "Qianjun, it's me. Have you arrived in Lessa?" Charlotte's voice sounded very tired. Qianjun's voice came from the satellite phone. "Boss, we just arrived at Lessa Airport. It's good that you're okay." "Boss, are you okay? You sound very tired." "I'm fine. It's all over. You can come back now, or you can stay there for one night and come back," Charlotte said. "What about you?" "I'll fly the Hades back to Rema Group. I'll come back when I've finished today's business." "Well, we'll come back now. There's no one in the base. I'm a little worried." After a pause, Qianjun said, "Boss, you said—" Charlotte interrupted Qianjun's words. "I don't want to talk about anything now. Let's talk when I come back." "That's it." He hung up the phone. Without a voice to speak, the entire Shangri-La fell into a dead silence. 10 minutes later, the Hades rose from the runway and instantly broke through the sound barrier, flying in the direction of the capital at top speed. The black fighter plane, lightning in the sun. The battle last night was a turning point. Even if he was alone, he would fight bravely. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.